The recording has started.
Thank you. So I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, April 6, 2022 Representative Town Meeting Budget Hearing number 1. Just some things before we get started. I'd appreciate if you have your cameras on. And remember, if you are going to ask a question or have a comment, please put your name in the chat box so I can see you. Please don't interrupt the presenters and the speakers and anybody else on the body. I will call on you when appropriate. So if the town clerk, Betsy Brown, could call the roll, please.
Ed Bateson, Melissa Longo, Marty
Here.
Fury,
Here.
Amy Ruggiero,
Here.
Karen McCormick,
Here.
Cindy Perham,
Here.
Hal Schwartz, Jeff Steele, Alex Durrell,
Here. I hope you hear me.
gotcha, Jeff Galdenzi,
Here.
Tom Lambert,
Here.
Sharon Pastilli,
Here.
Laura Carson,
Here.
Alice Kelly,
Here.
Marcy Spallier,
Here.
Liz Esma,
Here.
Will Diaz, Josh Garskoff,
Here.
Joe Siebert, Jay Wolk,
Here.
Steve Barretts, Hannah Gale,
Here.
Andy Graceffa,
Here.
Lisa Havey,
Here.
John Kuhn,
Here.
Mark McDermott,
Here.
Jill Vergara,
Here.
Karen Wackerman,
Here.
Hank Ferentz, Pamela Iacono,
Here. Here.
Christine Messina,
Here.
Peter Tallman,
Here.
Christine Brown, Drew Georgiadis,
Here.
Margaret Horton, Kelly Cinto,
Here.
Ken Astorita,
Here.
Peter Britton,
Here.
Frank Patisse, Story Tolman. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Okay, we'll do the pledge, and after that, we'll have a moment of silence again this month for what's happening in the Ukraine, and also our respects to Representative Georgiadis, who lost her mother this week. So I'll stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Well, let's jump right into it. We'll start off with a summary of the budget presentation by the first selectman woman. Madam First Selectwoman Kupchak, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
All right,
Did
the
I hear
floor
it
is
was your
yours.
birthday?
It is my
your
birthday.
Mr. Moderator.
It is.
Well,
And
happy
Laura,
birthday.
Laura Carson's as well, so thank you.
I'm very sorry that you have to spend your birthdays budget.
Well, they already gave me my carrot cake from the pantry, so it was lovely.
Okay, well, happy birthday to you both.
Thank you.
Okay, Jackie has the slide up. Again, I much appreciation to our finance department, all our department heads, and our town employees who work very hard throughout the year and in their assistance in helping create the town budget. Thank you to all our elected officials and volunteers who serve on our boards and commissions that make our community a better place to live and work. And it has been my absolute honor to serve as Fairfield's first select woman and work with all the amazing men and women who make up our town government. Fairfield at a glance, we did this in the past, if you recall, sort of just an overview of our town, our population, medium area households, and some other related facts. Cost increases. If you see here the different inflation, as we know, is at a 40-year high at 7.9%. Energy costs are up across the board, gas and all of that. The tipping fees, I'll note, went up with the CPI for solid waste, as well as hauling and operational fees to run our transfer station. So this is not unique to this year, but it's much higher with inflation. Recycling fees vary from quarter to quarter with higher fuel, minimum wages, and other market issues. Prices will be going up. So the budget that I put together, protects taxpayers, significantly increases educational spending, reorganizes and right-sizes town government, increased government modernization, access, transparency, and I believe the budget that was approved by the Board of Selectmen was responsive and a responsible budget. The FY23 budget major highlights, as you can see, salary and wages and contingency set aside reserved to fund open contracts, pension contribution, fully funded to the ADEC, OPEB, fully funded to the ADEC, fund balance, FY22 surplus will maintain 11.34% in our, through FY23, and our public schools budget increase was $10.4 million over last year, which constituted a 5.42% increase. I had it down to 4.12. It has been restored back after the Board of Finance to the full amount requested. This is just a budget summary highlight. This slide gives you a summary of the budget now approved by the Board of Finance in comparison to the FY22 adopted budget. Please note in the middle column also highlights the change from the Board of Selectmen budget that was passed to what the Board of Finance budget that was passed that's before you this evening. The Board of Selectmen budget proposed a 3.72% increase to the town spending and 4.12 increase to Board of Ed. As you can see, those are both up. And if you want to see the budgets in their entirety, my previous slide decks are posted on the fairfieldct.org/budget on our town website. This page is a full list of changes made by the Board of Selectmen. Some of them were significant by the Board of Finance. I will take this opportunity to touch upon a few of them now and others at a later time. The town has budgeted money for contingency to cover unexpected costs or cost increase for many years. The Board of Finance approved the use of contingency for many years as well, and they eliminated it completely, and I feel that it was a bit irresponsible. Considering just one bad weather event could cause major issues in our town, and we have seen those major weather events happen. Further concerning to me is the $850,000 cut to risk management, which is appropriated for costs related to the settlement of legal cases, which are estimated under the guidance of our town attorney, the risk manager, and our chief financial officer. This appropriation is transferred to the town's internal service fund, a balance for which increased to $6 million, primarily due to the lack of doctor visits and the delays in court cases during COVID. However, the fund balance is far less than the $12.6 million in accrued liabilities. This cut represents a 14% reduction in the fund balance, which will widen the gap between the fund balance and the claims that we will be required to pay. It took the Board of Finance many years to build up this fund, which was a negative fund, to the more healthier status that it is today. I think a conversation could have been had and questions raised about the balance, and a reduction may have been warranted, but a complete elimination of this funding is very concerning. It will surely be a red flag for our credit agencies. Aon confirmed at the end of March that the town's health cost contributions would increase by $336,902, which occurred after the Board of Selectmen vote and is reflected in the Board of Finance changes. The Board of Ed is expected to get updates mid-April on theirs. The Board of Finance changes and cuts and adds is the next slide. These changes you can see for yourself, and they also account for the self-supporting accounts to the WPCA. I don't have that. So this is where the money comes from, the total revenue as the Board of Finance vote. You can see there the current adopted budget. You can see the proposal, and then you see the change in dollars and the change in percentage. There's a block right before, so I can't really see that. I'm missing those 3 pages. Next 3. Municipal aid was up slightly this year, pretty significantly due to primarily the restructuring of college and hospital pilot programs. Something to note that after the FY22 budget was adopted, the town received a large prior year collection on property totaling $6.7 million, which many of you may be aware is called the Jack property. Investment income, as a town, we are very constrained on what we can invest in. Returns are minuscule as there are no returns in the bond market. We have a draft RFP to hire someone on investment strategy for the town's future. The next slide, where the money goes. Pension and OPEB are fully funded. Fees and professionals services are mostly related to contractual increases. Recycling contract also went up. All other reflects the ECC transfer. Shared town and Board of Ed expenses, nurses, and debt service. Health insurance has gone up due to higher utilization, and it was down last year due to COVID. And then noteworthy capital needs. We have our public safety, which we have our fire hose replacement, command vehicles, radio equipment, investigative technology and security cameras, public works, sewer treatment plant upgrades, snow plows, power equipment, and servers for our IT, and backup equipment, computer and laptop replacement. The Board of Finance cut $90,000 in capital from the DPW to fix the transfer station, which hasn't been invested in for years. They literally have steps that are failing. In fact, someone fell through them recently. There are issues with drains and other items. The Board of Finance has proposed to bond for this building instead, which Mr. Cattell is working on a proposal to address all the needs, which I'm told is closer to $500,000. The initial $90,000 was just to fix the immediate safety hazards. And they also, Board of Finance also cut the fire radio system from the operating budget for bonding. To note that most of you I know probably watched the Board of Finance meetings on these, but we were lucky enough to fund 9 of our police cars through the outside jobs fund in the police department that's funded through their overtime. This fund is built by vendors who pay the overtime for our officers, and then after they are paid out, the fund accumulated a significant amount of money, which was unique. It made sense to me to utilize and support, utilize those funds to support their capital needs. The Board of Finance opted to run this revenue and expense through the budget, and it ended up actually lowering the impact on our taxpayers. So if of course, many of you remember we had a whole presentation on the funding that we had approved for the paving plan when we had a consultant, an independent consultant, conduct a scientific study on all our town roads and create a 5-year pavement management plan to get them all in good shape. And after that, level off the spending so we could have a consistent number we could include in our operating budget. The total cost for year one was a little over $4 million. The Board of Selectmen proposed a $1.2 million in the operating budget, and the Board of Finance added an additional $800,000, making it, bringing it up to $2 million. We will be using 1.25 of that ARPA fund, as I had mentioned, and I told the board in this year, and we'll be using 1.25 in the following year. I will be proposing $780,000 from the surplus to fully fund our paving plan that the town paid for. I had proposed to bond some of the paving, but since some of our roads require major construction that would last up to 20 to 30 years, since more money was added to operating, I have revised my proposal to just include funds from surplus. I will say, I think adding it to the operating budget just increases the tax impact on our residents, and I would have preferred to utilize either bonding or surplus. The Emergency Communication Center, as you know, we pulled it out and have its own line. It's now a separate fund. All revenues and expenses will flow through the new fund, similar to our WPCA and our regional fire schools. Because the fund is not 100% self-supporting, there will be a separate ECC appropriation in the general fund to make up the difference. The proposed budget includes the assumption of adding a third town in January 1st, after January 1st, 2023. So, right-sizing town government. Organizing town departments to better serve the needs of our Fairfield residents has been something I've been trying to do since I came in. A lot of these requests were asked early on, and as we worked really hard and scrutinized and spent a tremendous amount of time looking at all our departments in a way that that only the administration could do. And the VRIP program, obviously, updating job descriptions, eliminating positions, restructuring, creating new positions that meet the needs of our modern day government. I had included a part-time director of social services to be moved to a full-time position because of the increased needs. The senior center consolidated 2 part-time positions into 1 full-time director. And the tax collector, which is going to have a person who, they have a tremendous need there where people are always asking about their sewer taxers, and they want what's called a rent collector tax. 80% will be funded by WPCA and 20% by the town. And the human resources was one of the, probably one of the busiest departments for all our town employees. We wanted to reorganize that in a way so it would make sense. The Board of Finance cut $118,000 out of the HR payroll. I have to say this is one of the most disappointing changes to the budget because of the real need in that department, because we're trying to work on trainings, we're trying to modernize our town government, and the HR department is a really, really crucial part of that. Let's see. And we did also include 2 new officers to address the new, well, not the new, the increased demands, I would say, on law enforcement. We included this slide, next slide, at the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. The Chief of Police put this together to kind of give a real sense, and I thought this was a very compelling spreadsheet to show the amount of service that our law enforcement department provides, and looking at other towns to see that we are really woefully understaffed in the police department. Frankly, I would have liked to even ask for more police to help us out, but I thought 2 was a reasonable number to get us started. Senior, disabled, and tax relief. State and local laws obviously provide property tax relief programs for Fairfield residents who are age 65 or over. or totally disabled whose annual incomes and assets are within specified limits. These programs are designed to help our seniors, our totally disabled residents to remain in their homes and the town that they helped to improve over the many years they've lived here. This program benefited 1,315 residents in the current fiscal year, and the 23 budget includes $4,077,768 from the town in tax credits and an additional $367,18 from the state. The FY budget increase, we did this last year, or last two budgets, to give a sense to everybody. You can just see how the pie chart, obviously how that works, where the money's going basically, and how it's being spent. Spending totals, the overall budget includes town budget, education expenses paid by the town, debt service on capital projects, nurses, et cetera, and the Board of Education budget. The Board of Education budget plus the education expenses paid by the town total 66% of the town's total overall budget. And this is a graph that we put in the last two budgets and in this one as well. The superintendent's request was 6.2%, 12 million increase. The Board of Ed approved a 5.43, so 10 million, 10.4, that increase, which was 202.4. My budget and then the Board of Selectmen included a 4.12 increase. And the Board of Finance restored the 2.5 for the full 10.4, which is a 5.43 increase. Every year since 2011, our enrollment has gone down 50 to 100 or so students. And if this continues, the requested increase continue, it's simply, I believe, is simply unsustainable. I know many of our elected officials have received emails from parents after the superintendent sent out a proposed cut list. And I want to be clear that what I proposed in my budget, which was passed by the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education came with a $10.4 million increase, which I reduced by $2.5 million. My budget increased the Board of Ed budget by $7.9 million, or 4.12 increase. And on the town side, the increase was 4.2 million, which represented a 3.72% increase for all the services that our town provides. During the budget process last year, I reduced the Board of Ed's requested increase by $2 million, and they finished their fiscal year with a $200,000 surplus, which they voted to invest in the Math Academy in special education. Last year, my administration was able to find $300,000 in savings on two items by simply making a few calls for better pricing. It is a cost savings measures like these that I believe will help reduce the education budget without directly impacting students. I have confidence the Board of Ed can do their due diligence to identify savings without impacting students in the classroom. The school district hired a communications director in central office who made $100,000 last year with overtime, a position the town does not have, but I also have to communicate with our residents during storms and all throughout COVID, and sending out a newsletter every other week that my chief of staff and I work on together. It is important to note that I do not have the authority, nor does the Board of Finance, tell the Board of Ed what to do in order to find savings. The only board that can make the decisions on that is the Board of Education. While I know they put out a potential cut list, I personally spoke to the superintendent who assured me that the cut list was not final. And I think it's important to note that that list included $4 million worth of suggestions on it, but didn't have any suggestions that didn't impact classrooms or students directly. The next slide. In summary, I believe the budget approved by the Board of Selectmen was responsive to the needs of our residents, businesses, and our taxpayers. It continued my efforts to modernize town services and reorganize our town government, move forward with my priority to right-size our town workforce, maintain strong investment in our public schools, fully fund our long-term obligations to keep our AAA bond rating. I'm very proud of the work my administration did with the fortitude to make the sorely needed and long overdue changes, and we will continue with those efforts. I care deeply about our community, and I will always listen to our residents. And I am very disappointed by some of the changes made by the Board of Finance, and I hope the RTM will consider some changes we will bring forward during the budget hearing. I thank you, Mr. Moderator, and I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Madam First Selectwoman Kupchak. Does anybody from the body, and write your name in the chat, have any questions for the First Selectwoman? Okay, well then let's hop right into the presentations from the departments. We're going to start off with Department 1010, which starts on page 29, and that's the First Selectwoman's office. So Brenda, I guess you're still up.
Okay, thank you. I mean, you could see pretty much in the budget book where you, like, as you noted, it's page 29. It's pretty straightforward. It gives you your regular payroll, part-time payroll, and so on and so forth. Some of the things I will note, we create a new training line in our budget to differentiate from the educational membership, which is basically our dues to CCM, so that you could be a more clear understanding of what we're doing with that. We have a lot of trainings that are free for employees through our employee assistance program. But that program provides, it does provide one-on coaching, support, mental health support, finance, investment courses, and other online trainings that employees can take. And CCM, excuse me, also provides some trainings as part of our membership. But there are extra trainings that we'd like to incorporate that are not offered for free. So we added some money to our budget so we can provide those. And I will open it up for any questions from the body, or hand it back to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam First Selectwoman. Representative Spolier, please.
Hi, Representative Spolier, District 4. I just had a question about the education. It just made me think, does any of that include any type of education regarding racial equity and injustice, considering the task force recently suggested that? So I'm not sure if that was possibly one of the extra educations you added into that.
We do have those, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Spolier. Representative Zesma?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Zesma, District 4, through you to Madam First Selectwoman. Brenda, I was just wondering if you could explain briefly why three of your staff are at a department head level.
I'm not sure what you mean by that question.
Well, they're non-union and they're classified as department heads. It's unusual to see multiples in one department, so I don't know if you can explain how that classification is determined.
So my understanding, well, I'm not really sure, Liz. I know that Jennifer's been here for many, many years. She's never been part of a union. Maybe it's because she's at will. And I think maybe all of the front office people who work for the first select person are at-will employees, and maybe that's why they're just not covered. Similarly to department heads, they're just not covered in a union. So that, for example, I guess, as with any first select person that comes into the new role, they have the ability to put in new department heads and have the ability also to choose the people that are going to work around them.
Okay, thank you. And is it possible to request job descriptions for any non-union positions?
You know, I think we've provided those during the VRIP, but we can always go back and look.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative Gale?
Hi, thank you so much, Hannah Gale, District 6. I apologize for my ignorance, but I don't have a child in the schools, and so I really didn't know what was going on until tonight in terms of this brouhaha. And what I don't, just the question that is coming up for me is why is the enrollment down in the schools on such a
Point of order.
trend?
Point of order.
Representative
So
Gale,
we're on topic.
we're speaking about the first select woman's
Oh,
department right now.
I know. I wrote in my question. I was trying to get on
Yeah,
before I wasn't able to raise my
I
hand.
said at the beginning, if you want to be recognized, put your name in the chat. Don't raise your hand. There's 50 people on the screen. I only have X amount in front of me, so.
I absolutely understand. It went by so fast. It was all
I would suggest that you maybe save your question for when we get to the Board of Ed, if that's okay.
okay. Then I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I just had one comment, Madam First Selectwoman. I attended one of those CCM trainings on running meetings, so I appreciate that we are members of that, and I'm glad that that's available to all of us. And if anybody has the chance to attend some of those trainings that they offer, I would highly recommend it. All right, so I don't see any other questions. So I appreciate, thank you very much, Madam First Selectwoman. I appreciate what you've done, what the administration has done, and all the department heads in putting this budget together. And we're going to carry on going through it.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's see. Next up is Department 1040 starts on page 35. FairTV, and we have FairTV Commission Chair Alex Vishno and FairTV Manager Jerry Spano. Who is going to speak, fellas?
I can start and Jerry can fill in if that's okay.
Okay, so introduce yourself, please, because.
Hi, my name is Alex Vishno. I am the chair of the Fair TV Commission. Thank you all for having me, and thank you for everything you're doing for our town. It's not easy, and quite a lot of work goes into all this. So again, thank you for everything you're doing. So Fair TV, the budget is going up a little bit. The reason the budget is going up is mainly to continue to do everything that Fair TV has done in the past, which you have seen at live in-person meetings when those were happening. But now also the broadcasting of Zoom meetings, which is happening, but then also moving into the future of what is being kind of referred to as a Zoom room or a hybrid meeting, which if anybody understands what that is, it's basically where there's a combination of some people who are on Zoom or WebEx or what have you, and there's also people who are in a room. And in order to do that, you need to kind of connect both computers of everybody who's online, but also computers in a room and cameras in that room and microphones in order to kind of create a hybrid scenario. So what we're really looking at is just additional manpower and a little bit of equipment in order to make that happen, to help use the equipment that, as I understand it, has already been installed or is being installed in order to facilitate these hybrid rooms. And so the goal would be that for Fair TV to continue doing what it's been doing, but also to add some, manpower and a little bit of equipment to cover the additional meetings that will happen. I shouldn't say additional meetings, but to cover the meetings that will happen as hybrid meetings. And I believe there are some additional meetings that will be getting coverage as well, and Jerry can speak to that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's really, in order to run video equipment and broadcast it, it simply takes people and equipment and time. And, the goal being to make all of these meetings as transparent as possible and available for anybody who'd like to see them.
Thank you, Mr. Vishno. Jerry, do you have anything to add?
Not at the moment. Alex described it pretty succinctly. There will be, as he said, additional meetings from additional boards and commissions. There's also the archival work that'll have to occur. so that people can locate them and, access them. All, as he stated, requires a person. So I think he outlined it pretty well. So if there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay, I do not see any in the chat. Is there anybody that has a question or comment? Or is everybody good with this? Jay, I see your hand, but I appreciate if you put your name in the chat. So Representative Woke.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Anyway, next time I will put it in the chat for you. But
Thank you.
Jay
Appreciate
Walk, you're welcome. Jay Walk, District 5. First and foremost, I've been a fan and an advocate for FairTV ever since coming on to the RTM. I can hear somebody's background.
That's
Anybody?
Jerry, you might want to mute yourself, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make this short and sweet. So I've been an advocate, ever since coming on the RTM for FairTV. Thank you for serving. Jerry knows me very well. I'm just, always concerned that, you guys have enough money for equipment. It's never enough, right? But, so hopefully we can get a little better sound in the Board of Ed room. And hopefully with this budget, you can upgrade some of that equipment. But anyway, thanks for everything. I appreciate everything, and that's it. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much.
I'll be supporting your budget. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir.
Is there anybody else that has a comment or question? I just have one question as far as, and I don't know if Dave Kelly, if you're on as well, is this on top of what any investments we're making through information technology as far as the equipment, or is this the equipment for handling meetings?
I thank you for your question. I can't speak to what's happening with IT, but this, from an equipment perspective, is really just supporting a couple of laptops right now, which are for, if you're at home right now running your meeting on your computer, you have your computer and we're all hooked up to the internet, and that internet is kind of feeding everybody else, and then it's archiving everything by creating a video that we can capture and send out to the world or put on YouTube. But in the case of when you're running a meeting where there's a where there's a camera in a room that's has to be fed into a computer, and also another computer is involved in order to put that on television or what have you. So like you kind of end up with a need for additional, just simply computers to sort of speak to computers and have it all work together. So that's a long answer to a simple question, I suppose. But really for us, we're just adding in this current budget a couple of laptops. The rest of it's really just manpower.
Okay, thank you.
This is Dave Kelly. I can speak to the Zoom Room concept. So the Zoom Room equipment was approved in the ARPA funding, and we have an RFP in purchasing right now to acquire the equipment and build out roughly 8 or 9 rooms with high quality microphones in the ceilings, cameras, things like that. The FairTV will be using that equipment or supporting board chair people in operating that equipment, as well as capturing the recordings and putting them online. We do in the short term, we have some inexpensive equipment installed in several rooms. I'm literally talking a small webcam on top of a tripod, for example, so that some boards are doing something in a hybrid mode at the moment, but it'll be a little while yet before we have the higher quality equipment installed in the meeting spaces.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I just want to understand where all the costs were being shown, and you quite elegantly told us that we use the ARPA funds for that, which I recall, and this is on top of that and separate yet together. Anybody else? Okay, guys, appreciate you coming tonight, Alex and Jerry.
Thank you very much for having us.
Take care. All right, we'll move on to Department 1270, which is on page 61, Legal Services. Town Attorney Jim Baldwin, are you with us?
Good evening, I am here.
Thank you very much, sir. Floor is yours.
Okay, terrific. You have before you the breakdown of numbers in the budget book. This year, you were provided with the estimate appropriations by category. General litigation, 13,000. General legal services, 13. Litigation, 302,000. Conservation, 25,000. Tax appeals, which is a significant increase for the reasons of the reval, is 190,000. We've put aside almost 150,000 for labor, and that has a lot to do with the labor negotiations, the union contracts that are up this year. I think there are 4, and charter revision. There's $30,000 set aside. I don't know if you have any questions. I can tell you that, my role as town attorney is to be that of like a primary care physician. I see that role as being one where I identify problems, I look at the issues and problems, and very oftentimes, if special expertise is required, I will refer the matter out to counsel who are experts or is an expert in that field. And we have increased our review of contracts and work very closely with the purchasing department, not only on the town side, but increasingly so with the Board of Ed. And so that's an area of increased legal time and therefore some expense. We're also still dealing with the fill pile issues in so many different respects, as well as the FEMA matter down at Penfield, which is commingled with some of the fill pile issues. And while we have special counsel assigned for those services, and much of those fees are contained in a separate area of the budget, they still spill into my budget as well to a certain extent. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Baldwin. Representative Georgiadis?
Hi, Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I had a question. In a previous meeting, we discussed the RTM need for legal support when we work on ordinances, which is part of our responsibility under the charter. I don't see any line item here that adds any kind of budget line for us, for the RTM, in that discuss need. And I believe, Attorney Baldwin, that you agreed that the RTM does from time to time have that need. So could you address that, please?
Certainly, yeah. Well, if I listed every single item or department that I provide legal services and advice to, it would probably include every single department, and we just don't break things down that way. So my role as town attorney certainly is to assist and advise the RTM in all such matters. And I would guess that if you were going to look at the budget, maybe it's in the general category, but I haven't broken that down.
So any need the RTM would have would come out of that $13,000 in the general?
But those are just estimates. Those are put forward for your review just to understand how we came up with the final number. It's not an exact science by any means. And so it's not as if we have a line item in the legal budget for those services. It's simply for the purpose of estimating for the budget. That is to say that the entire legal budget is obviously sufficient to cover the services and needs of the RTM.
Okay, so you're assuring me that if the RTM, I'm on the LNA committee, if we come to you and we're in need of legal assistance, that there'll be ample money here in the budget to assist us in anything we need?
Absolutely, that's why I'm here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. Representative Vergara is next.
Hi, Jill Vergara for District 7. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jill.
I really appreciate I appreciate that you broke this out this year for by the appropriation by category. I think it's really helpful to see that. And I also appreciate your analogy to primary care physician. And I understand why you compare yourself to primary care doctor, makes sense. But when seeking specialist care, people often vet specialists. Like I research, I ask for referrals, I ask my friends who's the best at this. I read a lot about the specialized care. And I'm wondering whether there's any kind of vetting going on with your referrals and what kind of oversight there is for these extra legal consultations and contracts.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is I do the same thing. And I consider that to be a primary role that I play, is all those things that you just described in terms of vetting counsel and making sure that you're getting the value for the kind of money that you're paying, which is typically much higher than my hourly rate. So that's how it's done. And in terms of oversight, I think the oversight is with the results, and it really is with the administration, myself, and certainly the other town bodies in their assessment of the quality of those services.
So the Board of Selectmen doesn't have any kind of part in approving any of these kinds of legal consultation, these legal consults?
No, with the larger matters that come before the Board of Selectmen, we have presented legal counsel, the Phil Pyle, for example, and the matter up on Greenfield Hill, the Newport Academy matter, and others. We have done that, but not on a case by case basis when it's just an individual case.
And there's no bidding process at all?
No, there is no bidding process.
Okay. Do we at least check for conflicts? I really liked that proposition by Attorney Mednick that legal consultation should be, we should ensure that there's no conflicts when we hire someone and they're not doing any kind of work that would prevent them to represent the best interests of our town.
Yeah, all attorneys are bound to the Code of Ethics, which includes doing a conflict check. So that is a given. And that is always a request made when a referral is contemplated to go out to somebody. They always must do a conflict check.
Okay, so any attorney who would be representing a developer with an application before, an active application before any one of our commissions would not be giving legal advice to our town at the same time?
At the same time, it most likely would not. There are situations where there are waivers, signed waivers, in situations where the person is representing a client in a matter which has absolutely nothing to do with the board or commission or the legal issue that they are also representing the town in. That has happened.
Okay, I really hope not, because I do see it as a problematic black box. And I think there is a way to have some oversight into it. And I wish that would enter into the process a little bit more. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Vergara. Representative Carson.
Hi. Thank you. Laura Carson, District 4, through you, Mr. Moderator, to Attorney Baldwin. I have a question about the Greenfield Hill, the Newport Academy. Was there a deductible that we had to pay before we get our insurance to cover the settlement that you have? And would that be considered paid already? Was it paid or is it going to be put in the new budget?
That did not come out of the legal budget, number one. That came out of the contingency, the legal contingency budget.
Did we have to meet a deductible for that?
Yes, that deductible was $100,000.
Oh, okay. So and it's done already. I don't have to worry about it going.
That was well consumed by legal fees. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And the employee labor, which contracts is that covering?
Well, it includes more than just the contract negotiations, but that's a significant component of that item in the budget. I believe there are four. Jared or Mr. Hazelkamp can rattle off those names much better than I can, and I'm not doing that work. That's being done by Attorney Zabel. He's a labor attorney.
Oh, okay, specialist. And
that's right.
And when we go to we're going to arbitration for the fire department contract, does that get fit in somewhere else or where does that go? Anything that goes to arbitration, just so I understand.
It's a good question. I believe that it is coming out of this budget. That does come out of this budget, but Jared can answer that question with certainty.
You don't know which category? Is that litigation?
No, that would be employer labor.
Okay. All righty.
Again, these are just these are just estimates and there's no such line item per se in my budget. This is just for your edification.
Just trying to understand. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Would you like to know the bargaining units?
I'm sorry, what?
That was Jared.
Would you like to know the bargaining units?
You're breaking up on my end. I'm sorry. I'd like to know what?
You had asked about the bargaining units that
the bargaining, yes. Just wondering what, sure. For everybody to hear, sure.
So the ones that are expired are PETA, THEA, the police will be expired.
The nurse.
Fire. Missing anything? Nurses will be completed and before you soon. ECC is done, and DPW will need to be negotiated.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Representative Agar again.
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. I forgot to ask you, you mentioned you attributed a lot of the costs to more tax appeals. And I wanted to see if you have a comparison to previous years. Is it higher than what we've encountered in previous years?
Yes, it's a full year of tax appeals, whereas I believe last year it might have been half the fiscal year. And before that, there was considerably fewer tax appeals simply because we did not have the reval done. I do not have the hard numbers for you.
Okay, is this indicative of a problem with the reval itself or maybe the company that conducted it?
No, I don't really have an opinion on that. I have no basis for an opinion on that other than the knowledge that the volume is greater, and that is very typical of what happens after a revaluation year. Just by way of example, the statutes allow for an increase in the number of Board of Assessment appeals people after or during reval years for a very good reason, because it's recognized that the appeals increase after all evaluations, all reassessments.
But do we have the numbers for the last time that we went through reval to compare to the tax appeals that occurred then?
I do not have those numbers.
they don't exist?
I do not, I am not in possession of them.
Okay,
Maybe the finance office could find that out. I don't have that.
okay, I
That
think it
was-
would be,
Mr. Moderator, that might be a good question for the tax assessor when he comes up, for his turn.
Okay, we'll hold that. We'll hold that. Thank you.
thanks, I think it would be useful
thank-
to know that. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Vergara. Representative Georgiadis?
Hi, Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Two more questions, a follow-up on Representative Vergara's question. So the tax appeals, if the reval was done in 2021, this 190,000 will start July 1 and go through 2023, and that's, and then you think it'll peter off because all the tax appeals, or they just continue for the 5 years and this number will not go down. So I'd like you to address that. And also, when you keep saying it's an estimate, it's an estimate, it's an estimate. So when you go over these numbers, because most budgets are, you got to stick to your budget. And when you're saying it's an estimate, I get the impression that you don't have to stick to the budget. So where will the overage come from when you surpass this estimate?
Well, that assumes that we will, number one, and I'm not saying that that is the case. Your first question about the tax appeals declining in number at the end of this coming fiscal year, yes, I think that's accurate.
Thank you.
We're settling quite a number of cases, and we're trying to be rather aggressive in that, but I won't speak to it any further because those matters are in litigation, but I'm almost certain that that will be the case, as it's been in past history. And then the question about the budget being estimates, yes, because the nature of litigation and legal services in general is very imprecise, and things come up and happen, whether they're emergencies like Penfield Pavilion or the Phil.
I understand that. I just want to understand where that additional money, when needed, will come from.
Well, I believe that it's the same as any other budget, which exceeds what's been appropriated, and it requires you to go before the Board of Finance for a transfer, just
Okay,
like any other department.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. Representative
Excuse me, Mr.
Sarita,
Moderator.
you've been with, excuse me, who is that?
Mr. Moderator, this is Jared Schmidt, CFO.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, let me go up to the podium.
Yeah, I don't see you. There you are.
Just to respond to that last question, one of the places that we could go if there is an overage would typically be the normal contingency. Unfortunately, that has been eliminated from the budget during the Board of Finance.
Yeah, but the normal process is that the department would have to request or moving money through the BOF would have to go before the Board of Finance, correct?
So so the normal process to go,
Yes.
if we had a contingency, that would be it, to go through the Board of Finance. Absent that, it would have to go through the whole process again to get an additional appropriation.
But you can't just take the money out of the contingency. You have to have the money approved through the Board of Finance before it comes from
By the
any,
Board of Finance.
before it comes from anything. Okay, great. Good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Representative Astorita, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mr. Moderator, and happy birthday. My question for Attorney Baldwin, and this is coming from someone who's new to the RTM and going through the budget process for the first time, just trying to understand some of the context here. Is there any particular reason why legal fees have basically doubled since 2019?
I can't speak to my predecessor and what occurred before I came here, but I can assure you that the need for legal services are significant, and those needs are being met. And I have no better explanation for it than
No,
that.
understood. If you don't have the context, that's fine.
Thank you, Representative Astorita. Anyone else? I don't see anybody in the queue here. I just had one question, Attorney Baldwin. The charter for $30,000, is that Attorney Mednick's fee for running the show for us, or or is that for other things?
That is almost entirely for Attorney Mednick, and it's split up between the current fiscal year for his services and the next fiscal year, by which time obviously charter revision should be done.
So what is his total fee, 60 grand or more?
Well, he estimated, I believe it was $65,000, maybe $70,000.
Okay. All right, thank you, Attorney Baldwin. Appreciate you coming tonight.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, folks, let's get on to Department 1350, page 73, Community and Economic Development. And I believe Director Mark Barnhart is here. I see him on my screen, so the floor is yours, sir.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, members of RTM. Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. I'll be very brief. I know you have a number of departments to get to this evening, busy agenda. The budget before you represents an 8% reduction year over year. As the first Selectwoman alluded to, and with your support this past year, we were able to upgrade an administrative position to a marketing coordinator position. The budget that's before you reflects allocation of 100% of the salary for that position to the town's general fund budget. Previously, a portion of that position administrative function was allocated to the downtown employee parking program, that fund. We have found it more efficient to use a part-time employee, continue to use a part-time employee to oversee administration of the parking permit program and also other downtown initiatives like the Sherman Green Banners. So that's fully funded. And as a result, the budget that's before you reflects full staffing for this department. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Barnhart. Does anybody have any questions? Going once, twice, 3 times, nothing there. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay. All right, moving ahead to Department 3010, Finance, page 115. CFO Jared Schmidt will be speaking to us. The floor is yours, Mr. Schmidt.
Good evening, thank you. Not a lot of changes to the budget overall. There's a overall 7.6% increase. I'll highlight a couple of things in here. One is that you'll see the addition of 1 employee to the department. This is actually a transfer of one personnel, which would be the DPW finance person, which in the 22 budget, the current year budget, is in the Department of Public Works. That position is going to move to the finance department and will serve a dual role of working on and kind of working between and coordinating between my office and the other departments on, especially on capital projects, but other financial matters that come up between them that need to be reported to us. So that was one of the reasons for the change in the increase. You'll see that I have included more money for educational and membership, and also for travel and meetings in the budget. This is because of the additional emphasis on more training, and also in my department particularly because we have a couple of new people that that we want to make sure that they have adequate training and are up to speed. And, you know, there are some really good opportunities for training through the GFOA, the Connecticut chapter of the Government Finance Officers Association. And, but they can be a little pricey, so I added some additional funding for that. Other than that, not too much. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Representative Spolier.
Hi, Representative Spolier, District 4. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Schmidt. I was looking through the DPW of Finance, and it looks like that was actually an added-on position last year to the budget you transferred it from. And I'm just wondering, did we ever get a job description on that new reorganizational role, which I think was part of the whole reorganization plan last year? And if so, will you be changing the job description at all now that it's changing departments?
We will have, because the position hasn't been filled yet, and so we'll take another look at it before the position is filled to see if there are any changes that are needed to the description. But when it was actually posted last year and did have a new job description to it because it was a new position.
Are you able to tell me why it wasn't filled, or do you? Should I save that for the DPW?
Why it wasn't filled? I know when it was posted, you know, the timing was not great, and the applicants for the position, it was limited, and yeah, so I think we weren't happy with the selection of candidates for the position. And in the meantime, go ahead.
I was just asking if there was a way that it would be different now versus what occurred last year.
Right, and so that's what I was saying, that we will take another look at it now because there will be some additional emphasis on some Department of Finance functions, including things like reconciliations and other functions like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara for District 7. Hi, Jared. In 2020, I learned about a consortium of CFOs in Fairfield County that they seem to have communications and talk to each other about different things that they were doing with their budgets. Are you looped into that consortium?
I know we have a number of there are a number of connections. There are traditional frequent emails that go out at certain times of the year between the Fairfield County CFOs, myself and counterparts in other towns in Fairfield County. There's also the organization that I mentioned earlier, GFOA. There's also that group which has a message board and other ways of communicating. So yeah, I'm definitely in communication with and monitoring those kinds of forums so that to see what's what's on people's mind, what they're asking about, and also I also actively participate and in particular ask some questions about how other towns fund their paving because that has been an issue in Fairfield about whether or not to bond for paving, and through that I learned that of the 19 responses that I got to the question, there were only 4 towns that didn't do any bonding for paving. So that's just one example of the way that I've used it, and we'll continue to
those 4
monitor
towns?
going forward.
Were the 4 towns that didn't
Who
bond?
were they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't. Woodbridge was one of them. I want to say maybe Newington. Yeah, I can send you the list of the towns.
That would be great. Thanks. I think it's so great that you're looped into that conversation. I was worried in 2020 when we weren't. So I'm glad that you are. And I think it's awesome that you're taking steps to make sure that your staff get all the training that they need. So thanks for doing that. I had one other question. Oh no, it was a comment. Something else came up during the Board of Finance hearing with you. And I think it was in reference to revenue and maybe leases, but I just wanted to say that I personally really love having the Mill Plain testing site where it is. I think it's an amazing asset for our town. I've had an experience where I take my kids into their pediatrician to get tested, and it takes days, which means that I have to have them stay out of school. And at the Mill Plain testing site, it can be under 24 hours. It's just such an amazing resource to have in town. So I really support it, and I hope we can do that as long as possible. So thanks.
Glad you're finding it useful and convenient. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Vergara. All right, Mr. Schmidt, I believe you're off the hook for now, and we're going to move. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to Department 3030, page 118, which is purchasing. Mr. Gerald Foley, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is Gerald Foley, the Director of Purchasing for the town of Fairfield. You have before you what I consider a very modest budget, similar to what Jared had said in the Department of Finance budget. Our only major, really one of our few major increases was the education. I have one person who's been in my office for quite some time, but I have two relatively new people. So what I'm trying to do is bolster their education in terms of the procurement and in even like in general office skills. So I requested some additional funding for that. And then I put in my budget a request to have one of my existing staff. Basically, we created a position so that she would be that person would move up to an assistant position. Right now, I have there's myself, and I have basically all the other people in my office are at the same level. So I'm trying to create like a staggered approach so that it's more diversity and kind of a deeper bench. So other than that, though, I think my total budget increase was 2.33%, which I thought was modest. Office is very busy. This fiscal year, we've had more budgets or more projects than we've ever had. So we do an awful lot of work with Attorney Baldwin and then with all the other departments. So given the size of the staff, I think the town gets a very good value out of our office. And thank you very much for considering my budget. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. Any questions? All right, I guess I just have one. So you're eliminating the part-time clerk job and moving one of these 3 junior buyers to a assistant director of purchasing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So the prior fiscal year, I had was just myself. It was 2 people in the office. So I'm sorry, it was myself plus 2 other people, and I requested funding for a part-time position, and then running parallel to that, I had requested funding for a full-time. So I was given the full-time position. So now I have myself and 3 employees. So with this budget, I've asked to basically eliminate the part-time because I was given funding for a full-time position.
Okay, so did you use that part-time person?
No, we did not. We didn't.
You did not hire that person?
No, did not hire that person.
Or you use them from, okay. Okay.
No.
Representative Pistilli, please. Sharon, are you there? see her on my screen, so I can't tell if she's muted. There you are. Yes, you are.
Read her.
So I hope you type fast. Can you please elaborate on the training 2,250? That's to you, Mr. Foley.
Okay, yeah, so what I've done is I've tried to get procurement classes. So what we have is our town and our department is a member of what's called the National Institute of Government Professionals. So they have like an accreditation program that I can have the basically my buyer or my staff take classes to improve their skills as it relates to purchasing. So what I've done is I put funding in the account so that the employees could take classes, and so eventually is give them an accreditation in called government purchasing. So it gives them basically skills starting off as buyer, and it takes them throughout the whole procurement process. And plus, there's some specialized classes they can take.
Does that answer your question, Representative Pastilli? Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Foley.
Thank you. Thank you.
Representative Vergara has a question.
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. So in the procurement process, you're not supposed to authorize purchasing until it's gone through all necessary government approvals, correct?
Yes.
So I still don't really understand how the situation arose with Gould Manor, and I hope we don't ever have that situation again where the town purchases something without having necessary town approvals.
Yeah, so Gould Manor, we ran parallel with the project as it was unfolding. The Department of Parks and Recreation asked for quite a few, well, lack of better terms, bid waivers. So in essence, what they did, in lieu of going out to bid for items, they applied to have bid waivers on certain processes. So that's why some of the items they were put in place kind of out of sequence.
Okay, I just know with like the scoreboard, it hadn't even come before us, and it was already purchased by the town. So I'm hopeful that these trainings will ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, so the scoreboard, that one I believe they had gotten 3 quotes for. So that was relatively early on in the process. So the Department of Parks and Rec had gotten 3 quotes. They submitted that to my office, and utilizing those 3 quotes, we placed an order to buy the scoreboard.
Yes, but unfortunately, it was before we had voted for approving it.
You mean the budget or the item?
The actual appropriation. Because they came before us for an additional appropriation, and that included the scoreboard.
Yeah,
Point of order, Mr. Moderator, this has nothing to do with the budget. Can they maybe take this conversation offline since it's not related to the budget book?
Yeah, we'll move on to Representative Georgiadis.
I'll remove my question.
Okay. Nobody else there, so thank you, Mr. Foley, for
Thank you
coming
very much
for us tonight, and we'll move on to Department 3050, page 122, Assessor, Tax Assessor Ross Murray. Are you here, sir?
I am. Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Thank you. I'm Ross Murray, the assessor for the town of Fairfield. I'll take you through my budget, and I will touch on the tax appeal portion of it last. Just looking at the larger percent increases, that's in the secretarial services for the BAA. We're seeing a need for that to increase, and unfortunately, the budget lags about 2 years from the actual event. So usually we're trying to predict 2 years in advance. The other item, we have a increase in our advertising. That's about 150% increase, but it's a small dollar amount. It's about $200. I'm sorry, it's 250 for this year. We have to do one notice in the paper, and unfortunately, the papers are charging quite a bit for a legal notice. We also have in the fees and professional services, we have our motor vehicle pricing guides. We use the NADA guides. They're recommended by the state and the Assessors Association. And those books were taken over by a new owner, and they have been steadily raising the prices quite substantially. So this year it's going to go from $1,200 last year to we're thinking about just over $4,500. So dollar-wise in our budget, it's not a lot, but percentage-wise, it's quite a bit. And then, of course, the big item is the Superior Court appeals. The funding in my budget is for outside professional services, mostly appraisals. We do have an appraiser we work with. He provides us advice up front when we're initially going through the appeals. And then if we have to have a full appraisal or go to trial, he would perform that service. So that has gone up 40,000 this year. The appeals tend to cost more if they go further along. Right now, we had 108 after the reval. We've settled about a third of those, and we're working through the remainder 60 or so. And if we have to take some of those to trial, that's where we'll incur additional expenses. And we would expect to get through most of these by the end of next fiscal year.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? All right, so when you say there are, I'm sorry, Representative Perham.
Hey, Ross, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I have a question. So I noticed in your
Introduce yourself, please.
Cindy Perham, District 2.
Thank you.
I noticed Secretary A and Senior Assessor did not get a bonus because they're at the highest level. And would they be able to experience a longevity bonus that I see has gone down from 2022 from 2,800 to 1,000? Do they receive any kind of bonus?
I believe that's a relatively new hire. So we did have that person came in I believe she came in 3 years ago. So she's not eligible for bonuses or longevity yet. And we also had 2 people take the early retirement that were eligible. So that's why you're seeing a decrease in the longevity.
Oh, so the person that just got there 3 years ago is not eligible yet?
Not yet, no.
But is the 2 that are making the 54,000 and the 87,000, they are eligible for an increase ever or not anymore?
Are you talking about increases or longevity?
Increases.
Increases, they're in the union, so and I believe both their contracts are expired.
Oh, okay.
So that's why you're not seeing an increase. It'd have to go through the process.
And will that be able to go through the process so that they could receive an increase if eligible?
Yeah, it would be determined when they decide when they settle the union contract.
We don't know when that will be.
No.
Just because I know this is your busy time, I'm sure they would like to get an increase if possible.
I'm sure.
Well, thank you.
Representative Pistilli. You need to start typing now, or? She's typing.
And while she's typing, I know you had a question on the number of appeals, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the number of appeals to Superior Court was high for last year, but we also had a high number to the BAA. 5 years ago. In the last reval, I don't have the exact number. I think it was 250 to 300 versus 650 last year. And 10 years ago, it was closer to 1,000. So, you know, it ranges, say, from 500 to 1,000 in a reval year. And, you know, more BAA appeals will equal more Superior Court appeals.
So right now, what you said we're sitting on 108?
We had initially 108 go to Superior Court, and we're down to, you know, around 60, I believe. About a third have been settled
Okay, then.
or withdrawn.
Were we hearing appeals in March? Is that part of it?
Well, there's two different. There's the appeals that go to the Board of Assessment Appeals. That's the first step. And the appeals that Attorney Baldwin we're talking about is the appeals to Superior Court, which happens after they go to the BAA. And this year we had 113 go to the BAA, which is less than we've seen in at least the last 6 years. And many of those were granted reductions, so we should see the appeals drop off significantly as we work through the what we've got from last year.
But some of those could be added on to the, well, it's not 108 anymore, to what you said you've done a third of those, so 65
Right,
plus
right.
whatever.
Right, so this year the BAA, they turned down, there's 12 commercial appeals that they were over $1 million that they had the option not to hear, and they exercised that. And then there was about 101 that they actually rendered decisions on. They granted reductions on 86, and that left 15 that they denied. So based on those numbers, we don't anticipate seeing very many go to Superior Court.
Okay, and you don't have to answer it tonight, but maybe you could let us know, like, what was the lost revenue by the reductions that we were given, that we gave last year and this year, year to date?
I have no idea.
This year, the reduction to the assessment was about 10 million.
Don't know where that is.
And then
Alex,
I believe,
I'm sorry, Alex, you want to mute, please? Sorry, Ross.
yep. And I believe last year, and I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it was closer to 35 million.
Okay.
And I'll answer Representative Pastelli's question. We have filled one of the two positions, and we're working on filling this second. We've had quite a bit of difficulty in filling the positions. You know, everything you've heard about the job market, we're experiencing trying to fill these positions. We've had somebody fill the position and leave within 6 weeks, offered the position to people and had gone through the whole process and then turn us down. So it's been a struggle, but we have one new clerical person, and she's working out excellent. She's turned out to be just a great asset to the department, and we hope to find a second shortly.
Okay, and just you jumped ahead on me there, because we need to read the question for the public.
Sorry.
So, I know you can read it, but the public can't, that's watching at home on FairTV. So Representative Pastelli's question: lost 2 FTEs, but I don't see decrease in the payroll. Have these positions been filled? Do you have enough headcount to make it through all of the appeals, et cetera? Thanks. So, and Representative Pastelli, are you satisfied with Mr. Murray's answer? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Representative Spolier.
Hi, Representative Spolier, District 4. Thank you. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or if it's a question for the tax collector who's up after you. So I'm kind of just signaling to stay around. But with these appeals that seem to be taking a long time, do those residents pay the appeal value or the prior value? Do they pay the value that they were assessed at recently, or how do they pay if the taxes are due and their appeal process hasn't completed? How does that work?
That's a better question for the tax collector, but I can give you a sense of it. most times they're paying the assessment as is without any reduction. There is an option to pay, I believe it's 75% of the bill. But of course, if they don't get that full reduction, they would owe that difference back with interest. So most times they're paying the full amount. You do see that some of the larger commercial appeals will exercise that option. But Dave can fill you in on that better than I can.
If it's valued under 500,000, they can pay 75%. Over 500,000 value, they can pay 90%. But like Ross said, they do run the risk of paying interest if they do not, if the appeal is not in their favor.
Thank you. And if they pay ahead of time and then the appeal is in their favor, do we owe them money back?
The way we structure the appeals is that the money is reduced off of their current bill, or if it's there's not enough left on the current bill, it's carried forward to the next year. So we don't actually refund them money, we just reduce their bill until it's used up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Spolier. I don't see anybody else with questions, and Mr. Klazuski, David, you're teed up, so we're going to Department 3090, Tax Collector, page 125.
All right, good evening, Mr. Moderator and other members of the RTM. My name is David Klazuski. I'm the tax collector. And I believe it is page 127 is the important page for the tax collector budget. So my budget represents a 1.94% increase. Like many years, the bulk of that increase is part of the regular payroll account. Specifically this year, it involves, as Brenda mentioned previously, the sewer rent collector line. So this position is part of the initiative to right-size government and in order to better serve resident needs. What this position intends to do is that there was a vacancy in the Public Works Department, and there was an opportunity not to take that position, but to take some of the role of that position over into the tax office. There was a clerk position over in Public Works that handled the technical aspects of sewer collection. So the sewer use taxes, we collect sewer use taxes for over 16,000 properties in Fairfield. But in our office, we only handle the collection of those taxes. There's other aspects such as the preparing of the bills, dealing with issues. So a sewer bill is based on it's calculated from your previous 5 winter months of water usage that you pay to Aquarion. And so it's very different from a regular tax bill. If someone comes in and says, why is my brand new BMW so high? Well, car taxes are based on value, so we can easily explain why a car tax bill is very high because the car is brand new, it's a higher end car. When someone comes into the tax office and says, why is my sewer bill so high? That's not an easy question because it's utility. It's based on the amount of water they've used. So we can't exactly answer that question, but now we're in a position where we can answer that question and have this sort of, efficient one-stop shopping situation where the taxpayer comes into our office, they wonder why their bill is so high, and this position is going to be able to go into their water account and their sewer account and assess why the bill was high. They could have had a water leak, a running toilet, some type of plumbing issue that caused the bill to increase. In the past, it was very inefficient because we didn't have this information. We didn't have this position at our disposal. So we would have to send them to another building or provide them with a phone number, basically send them away from our office, scratching their head without an answer. So the hope here is that we have this position now in our office. We can provide a better service to the residents, and we can also both collect their sewer use taxes, but also give them an answer as to why there was an issue with their bill. But other than that, everything else is minimal increases or decreases across the board, and I welcome any questions from the RTM.
Thank you, Mr. Klazewski. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jay Wolk, District 5. Hey, David.
Hi, Jay.
Not long time no speak. I have a question for you regarding your staff. First, every time I come to pay, I just want you to pay a compliment. Every time I come to pay my taxes in your office, everybody couldn't be nicer. So, and everybody, whoever I see. But anyway, I remember a few years ago, the RTM had cut a position for you. Unfortunately, did that position ever come back? Did you ever restore that position? I mean, how you doing with staff?
It was never restored.
Terrible.
Customer service has been lacking because of that fact. And so adding this position, it's not the complete solution, but it is at least a solution, because the hope here is that sewer taxes are collected semi-annual every October and April. Motor vehicle and real estate taxes, the initial billing occurs in July, and then the busiest times are July and January, the exact opposite of sewer. So the reason why we divided this up as an 80% to 20% is that the bulk of this position is going to be doing sewer work, but the slowest time for this position that collects and handles sewer billing is going to be in July and January, when that is our absolute busiest time for property taxes. So the hope here is that they can assist us during July and January when we're extremely busy. I have 5 union employees that have to take lunches. We are an office that has to be open 8:30 to 4:30. We do not close for lunch. We stagger our lunches, but to have this extra individual is going to greatly assist us when it comes to high volume of phone calls, high volume of mail, lines of taxpayers in the office. So again, it's not the absolute solution to adding the position back, but I believe it's a great compromise, and it's going to greatly assist us in improving our customer service and improving our efficiency.
I'm very happy to hear that. I know you've been struggling, ever since that cut in your office, what you've been dealing with. Something else I heard, I just wanted to ask you, did you hear anything? I don't know whether the state legislature is going to talking about this, of cutting the property tax on our cars. Is that something that you heard?
It is something that gets discussed probably on an annual basis for this. So I'm actually one of the co-chairs of the legislative committee for the Connecticut tax collectors. So I'm on the pulse when it comes to this. For this year, from what I understand is they're not trying to cut the motor vehicle taxes. They're trying to place a mill rate cap on the motor vehicle taxes. But the lowest that they have recommended is 29 mils. So at this point, it would not be an impact to the town of Fairfield.
Okay, thanks, David. You take care of yourself. Thanks for
You're
all you that you do. Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, Representative Wolk. Representative Durrell.
Yes, Alex Durrell, RTM 3. Will the People's Bank acquisition by M&T impact our association with them paying the property taxes?
It has not impacted. What has been told to me is that the acquisition occurred on, go figure, April 1st, April Fool's Day. But then the full changeover is not occurring until Labor Day weekend. And it's been my understanding, they have told us that it's business as usual. Taxpayers can still make their payments at any People's Bank branch. And they can still make their payments to us, and there's no changes as far as that goes. And I've been, once the official change happens on Labor Day, there has been no indication that M&T would not discontinue any services that we currently provide.
If there is, or would there be some type of notice sent out? Top ahead, I just thought of that. What would happen? Would they send something, or would you send something?
Yeah, I would certainly have to. That would be, the assumption is that there would not be a change, because I would assume that they understand that taxes are due in July, and if their official changeover is happening on Labor Day, then we've already sent out bills set up in a way that allows people to pay at branches. But certainly, if there was a change, we would make every effort to send out a notice to taxpayers through the mail, post notifications online, through the town website. We would certainly do that.
I certainly wouldn't think People's Bank would drop the ball after 180 years. Okay. Same questions I usually ask. What percentage are using People's Bank to pay their taxes? Is it still about 3.5%? I think you kept saying.
Yeah, it is
Point
a
of
small
order,
number.
Mr. Moderator. Is this related to the budget? Is this something that can happen offline? Is there a budget impact of using it?
Yeah, I believe it can.
Thank you.
Thank you. 45% of the people pay their taxes through escrow through the bank, Mr. Durrell, and 55% go down to town hall and pay them. Are there any other questions from the body?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dave, for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And keep collecting that money. All right, department 3110, information technology, page 129. We heard briefly from our good friend, IT director, Mr. Dave Kelly, who's with us at every meeting these days. So the floor is yours, sir.
Good evening.
The man behind the curtain.
Yeah, behind the seal at the moment, I guess. Dave Kelly, Town IT Director. The hour's getting kind of late, and I know you got a lot of more people to go, so I'll try to be brief. The Town IT budget basically pays for the maintenance of software and computer systems that are shared by all of the departments in town. If a department has a unique software product, such as maybe the Mr. Klazuski's tax collection software, that comes out of their budget. But the generic stuff like the finance system and Microsoft software and things like that are paid through the IT budget. We generally maintain our equipment on a rotating basis, so we use capital outlay funds and maintenance and repair to replace our PCs and laptops on roughly a 5-year replacement cycle. Servers tend to be more on a 7 or 8 year replacement cycle. Just some of the highlights, some of the bigger changes in the budget from last year to this. The payroll budget, that's just a transfer. We're transferring 2 positions into the IT line, one from the library and one from the police department. You'll see corresponding reductions there. The communications line is quite a bit lower this year. That's because we had a 5-year contract on the town's fiber optic wide area network that was initiated just right before I came to town. And a couple of the circuits in that network were very, very expensive. I tried to break the lease early on, but was unable to. But at contract renewal, I was able to redesign the network and save quite a bit of money there. And we also switched our internet provider to a far less expensive one. We pay 1/5 as much now as we did before for 10 times the internet bandwidth. So those are kind of the highlights. I'd take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Yes, we have one from Representative Wackerman.
Thank you, Karen Wackerman, District 7. Hi, Dave. Nice to hear your voice. I just had a quick question to follow up on something you mentioned earlier in the meeting, and that's the getting various rooms ready for hybrid meetings. And I'm wondering if you have any sense of what the timing is on that. You said you're doing an RFP. Do you have an estimate of when that might be ready?
I don't. The RFP is in purchasing now. It needs to go out to get some vendors to actually implement a plan that we received from the Zoom people. Actually provided us with a design. So once we do the RFP and select a vendor, then our next problem will be the supply chain issues of actually getting the equipment. So I'm sorry, I just don't have a good estimate.
Okay, thank you though. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Wackerman. Representative Georgiadis.
Hi, Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Just a quick question. I understand what you said about the payroll. The other line item that's really high is Social Security contributions. I don't remember having seen the Social Security contributions broken out from payroll. Why is this a separate line item? It appears to correspond to the payroll.
Oh, I'm going to have to ask for help from someone in town hall because I don't do the Social Security part of the budget.
Representative Georgia, that's in every budget.
It is? Okay.
It's Social Security is broken out.
It is broken out. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Representative Lambert?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Lambert, District 3, through you, Mr. Moderator, to David. Thank you so much for your time. I just have a quick question. You may have even already covered it in responding to Representative Wackerman. I know we use WebEx here. I assume that this budget includes licensing for various online platforms. I was just wondering, and if this is part of the RFP, you can let me know. But have we compared costs for WebEx versus Zoom or Microsoft Teams? And if so, are we happy with WebEx? Are we exploring other options? I can just say that as an attorney with the various courts that we interact with using the various online platforms, I know that our appellate courts, our federal courts, our superior courts, our probate courts all use different platforms. And I never understood why, if it's a security measure or cost or what. So I was just wondering if you could maybe just talk a little bit about, how we land on WebEx, what we like about it, what we perhaps don't, and if we're considering pricing that out for other options.
Neither WebEx or Zoom are all that expensive. The reason that we're using WebEx is simply because when COVID first hit, Zoom had a significant, very publicly advertised across CNN security problem with their software. You may have heard the term Zoom bombing. You may have heard that some software made people's computers vulnerable to hackers turning on their webcams and looking at them in their rooms and things like that. And we just felt at that time that with CNN flashing that across the screen, left, right, and center, that it wouldn't be a very good idea to insist that people use Zoom at that time. So we were going in the Zoom direction, but we quickly switched to WebEx. And just because, just to keep things simple for all the boards and people that need to log in, we've stuck with WebEx. But price-wise, neither of these products are terribly, terribly expensive. For Zoom is $50 a month. WebEx is a couple $100 a year for this meeting we're talking on now. So that it wasn't really a cost decision at the time. It was more just we didn't feel it was fair to ask you all to use a software product that was being very widely talked about in the news as insecure.
Understood. Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Lambert. I don't see any further questions. And I just, okay. We got to get quicker here because we got to move along. Representative Bastilli, and I know you got to type unless you got a new headset or something. Your mouth is moving, but nothing is coming out on the speaker. It better be important. Dave, is your department at the right size in terms of headcount?
Yes, I believe so. We are doing a bit of a reorganization, a modernization of our staffing in IT, but I think we're at about the right number for the size of the community that we support.
Thank you, Representative Bastilli, and thank you, Mr. Kelly. And I want to personally thank you for keeping us rolling over the last couple of years. You've done a great job, and we all really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Department 3150, page 137, unemployment compensation. And back to CFO Jared Schmidt.
Thank you once again, Mr. Moderator. Unemployment compensation, this is not an easy number to nail down. There have been some changes at the federal level that have some impact on us where there were some credits that were still remaining at the end of COVID that are now going away and have gone away this fiscal year. And so it's difficult to, really identify a base in order to, project forward what this number is going to be. So we did our best. We actually, after going through the Board of Selectmen, this is one of those items that changed coming out of the Board of Selectmen from the first Selectwoman's budget. We reduced the $350,000 that you see in the budget book down to $250,000 after we went back and re-looked at it. So that the appropriation for this for next year is $250,000, and that's our best estimate at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. I guess I don't see any questions, so I just had a quick. What are fees and professional services for this department? What does that apply to? So it's only $5,000, but I just.
I'll have to look into that. That's probably. Yeah, let me. I don't want to misstate. Let me look into that and get back to you, Mr. Moderator,
That's okay.
if I could.
Not a problem. All right, and let's move you on to 130, page 225, debt service. Page 225.
Good evening, Frank McNeary, Budget Director for the town.
Good evening, Frank.
How's it going? I'm just gonna go over this with some high-level detail, and then you can ask me any questions if you have any. So the debt service org 10030 is decreasing by about 1.4 million to about a total of 24,210,208. And in this org, there's pretty much three major areas. There's your fees and professional services, which is the only thing really going up. That went from 100,000 to 150,000, and that's for your cost of issuance, like your cost for your bond counsel and financial advisors. The other two areas are your payment of principal and your payment of interest, and that's where you're seeing a large reduction. The largest reduction in the payment of principal is due to a final payment on a state loan for clean water, and that went from 1.7 million last year to 294,000 this year, and that's the third line on your redemption of bonds. And then your interest expense is going up a little bit, and decreasing, and that's really due to us paying off older issuances and then getting newer issuances with lower rates. So happy to ask any questions if there are any, answer any questions. Sorry.
Thank you, Frank. Any questions? Okay. Does anybody mind if I take something out of order? If I let these guys do Department 2010 contingency on page 78 for Mr. Schmidt?
I could do it. You want to do it?
Or Frank can do it. Well, whoever, yeah, just
Well,
while you're here, then you'll be done. Then you'll more or less be done for the night, hopefully.
Yeah, it works for me. Let me just get the book. You just said the page.
I mean, I know you got to stay here for the whole thing, but you can relax for a while.
Okay. Sorry about that. I just want to pull it up here. All righty, so, contingency, is mainly, it's basically two parts. I really can't speak about, one of the parts because it's, you know, it's part of contract negotiations and those, can't be discussed publicly. But contingency is broken up between two parts. It's normal contingency and a reserve contingency for, salaries. So for a broad description, that contingency for salaries is, you know, whatever you're putting aside for what you expect, unions to settle at for their, unsettled contracts. So as it was mentioned earlier, we have a large number of unsettled contracts, and so that's why you see the contingency number increasing. For the first selectwoman's budget, it increased by 78%. Like I said, that's because you have a lot of you know, contracts that are unsettled, and you know, for example, the police department, their contract is expiring in June of 2022, so theirs is going to be added to the docket of things to be negotiated. It was increased slightly by the Board of Selectmen by $122,000, and then further on reduced by the Board of Finance by $350,000. And so I could take any questions if there are any.
Yeah, so what's that current number? 2,418,149? Is that the right number?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. Representative Wackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Karen Wackerman, District 7. Jared, I just had a question. I think it was said earlier a few times that the Board of Finance eliminated contingency, but I guess really they cut it, but we still have this 2,400,000, right? Am I right about that? I was confused when I heard they cut it.
Sure. So that was referring to that. Like I said, there's two areas. You know, a normal contingency and a contingency for salaries, and that cut would have been for the full normal contingency.
Okay. So, but it's probably one bucket, right? That it's just, you're just guessing how much you might need for each thing.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the money's budgeted in one line. Like I said, though, you know, there is backup for it, and there is detail to the backup. And the normal amount was you know, that was the amount that we had set aside for normal, a little bit less.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clear that up. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Representative Wackerman. Representative Iacono.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Representative Iacono, District 8. Through you to the Budget Director or the First Selectwoman, what is the plan of action now that we don't have any money in contingency budgeted for emergencies?
Okay. I'll let the First Selectwoman answer that.
Thank you, sir.
You know, Representative, I don't know the answer to that question because I don't think it's ever happened before. I did ask the CFO, you know, have we used the contingency? Has the town of Fairfield used contingency in the past? We said yes, every year for maybe an overage, say, for example, the example that was maybe given earlier regarding legal, with the amount of issues with the fill pile and Penfield and FEMA and all of that stuff, you know, that might be an area we may have used it, or maybe an account goes over. The storm we had where the summer where I don't know for a fact, Mr. Smith would have to pull a list and send it to the body, but I would imagine there was a considerable amount of overtime when we had all those trees that summer with that storm, and the trees came out all over town, and pretty much 3/4 of the town was without power. We did have to bring in a lot of outside contractors, and we had to work with the Make Safe crews with UI to get the trees out of the way. It was, you know what it was like. It was a mess. I mean, I was without power for 8 days. It was disaster. So I don't know. I just think it's very concerning to not have any contingency in a town this size with the uncertainty that could come up.
If we do have a catastrophic storm that we have suffered here in Fairfield recently and in the near past, do you imagine a situation where we would have to freeze services in order to gather funds to do transfers to cover those expenses?
I mean, listen, the town is gonna take care of the town. I'm not really sure. Again, I've never experienced this. In 2 years, we've had storms and stuff come up. I would imagine we would just push forward and take care of what we have to take care of, and then I guess later on go before the Board of Finance and ask for transfers.
Gotcha.
I mean, we're gonna take care of the town.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Iacono. Thank you, Madam First Selectwoman. Representative Zesma?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4. Through you to, I believe, the First Selectwoman. If memory serves, back in 2017, the majority on the RTM cut the contingency in its entirety of $895,000. And I wonder if we could look back and see what the activity was and how funds were found or utilized elsewhere in the budget, because certainly there must have been incidents where what would have normally been the use of contingency, those type of expenses came up.
Do you happen to know if that was for regular contingency or for contractual contract contingency? Do you know?
I believe it was regular contingency.
I'm happy to have Jared look into that and get the information. Obviously, that was a long while ago, but I don't know. I wouldn't know the details.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
2017, you say, Representative?
Yes, that is my recollection.
Okay. Well, they'll look into it and send you whatever information they can find.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative Iacono with a follow-up.
Actually, Mrs. Kupchak answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam First Selectwoman. Anybody else? All right, we're gonna thank the finance guys, and we're gonna move on to health and welfare. And Department 6010, page 180, health. And the Health Director, Sans Cleary. You're up.
Hi, Sans Cleary, Fairfield Health Department. Thanks for having me, Mr. Moderator. Our department is requesting a 0.28% increase. This is largely due to contractual wage increases, some gasoline cost increases, and that's really it. We really haven't asked for any significant changes to our budget. We've reduced one line item to by $2,000 and added that to our overtime budget because we had been running over in the previous few years, so we wanted to add to that. But really, that's about the only changes that we have. And the small increase is largely due to most of our employees' contracts are expired and haven't been settled yet.
Thank you, Mr. Cleary. Any questions or comments from the body? I don't see any up. Sorry. I guess I got to pause. I got to take a pause. Representative Perham.
Cindy Perham, District 2. I want to thank you, Sans Cleary, and your staff for keeping us safe, keeping us vaccinated. And we just really appreciate you. And that's one of the reasons we wanted you on the agenda, was to publicly thank you for all you've done for our town, keeping us as safe as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Perham. Representative Castilli? Maybe? Nothing? Representative Spolier, we'll wait for the typing to happen.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question, and Sands, you just get this because you're the first one, I think, out of the department to come before us. But you used how many cars for your department? And I was just wondering, because in a lot of the budgets we have like gas and fuel and upkeep costs, and I know that with the ARPA funds, we're anticipating getting some hybrid and electric vehicles, and I know like at least, I think you guys have at least 5 cars allocated towards the health department. And I was just wondering if we anticipated, and I'm sorry if this isn't a question for you directly, but it does impact your budget. If we get the cars and they're allocated towards your department, do we expect the fuel costs and the maintenance to actually go down?
If depending on the style of car that they are, if they're gasoline powered cars, then I imagine it would be similar, but we have 4 inspectors that are out in the field every day, and myself that have vehicles, cars, and so I don't think it would change significantly depending if we went all electric, or like when we were natural gas, it was cheaper, but when we all had natural gas cars, so yeah, I mean, and this stuff is really reflected, there would be adjustments made if that happened.
Do you have any of the new cars yet?
When you say new cars, no, we have all police department hand-me-downs, Crown Vics, and today we just got one Ford Taurus.
A new Ford Taurus, or one a hand-me-down from the
Hand-me-down.
Oh, okay, great. It looks sorry, it looks like Ms. Kupchak might have the answers to my question. I'm sorry to put you on I just know it's in several budget line items, and you just happen to be the first.
So I think you might be referring to the electric cars that we have in the ARPA funds, Representative?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we obviously, like most everybody else, we're having supply chain issues. So we're really hoping that we're going to get those as soon as possible, but we don't have them yet.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Spolier. Representative Pastilli, you were just seconding what Representative Perrin said, and thanking you, Sands, for everything you've done, and your team and your department. Representative Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Lambert, District 3, through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Cleary. Mr. Cleary, thanks. I want to echo everyone else's comments, thanking you for all that you've done for our town, and especially thanking you for the vaccination clinics. I think that have been really well received. I know I've gone and got my vaccine from those clinics. I guess a question I have is whether those will be continuing as further boosters are approved by the government through the respective agencies. And I guess a two-parter. Second, is that coming out of, or is that going to be accounted for in your budget, or is that paid for through some other way?
Yes, yes, we will continue. We had a clinic yesterday. My arm's sore from my second booster right now. And so we'll continue as long as there's demand. Right now there's a lot more providers now. So every pharmacy and Griffin Hospital is having mobile clinics everywhere at, Trumbull Mall all weekend long, that type of thing. So as long as there's demand, we'll keep having them. We just had one yesterday. We were working to schedule another one at the end of the month after the school vacation, and we'll continue as long as there's demand. And the vaccine and the supplies are provided to us for free, and we can bill insurance for that covers any incidental costs to run the clinics.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative Lambert. Okay, Sands. I agree with what everybody said. You guys have done great things for the town, and thanks for coming tonight and talking to us for a little bit.
Yep. Thank you for having me. Have a good night.
Have a good night. All right. Next up, Department 6050, page 184 starts on Human and Social Services, and we have the Human and Social Services Director, Julie DeMarco, with us tonight.
Hello, everybody. You can see on our budget, we're asking for an increase of 9% this year. It's fuel and lube, and also personnel. We are requesting to increase 2 part-time positions to full-time positions to reflect the need and demand. Our social services coordinator from part-time to full-time, and our senior center director from part-time to full-time. The senior center has expanded membership by 2 times since I started. So we have 5,500 members, and in social services, we serve all ages in town, and you can imagine how the increased demand and need from COVID has impacted the department, and we could really use the continuity with the care and assistance that we can offer our residents. Any questions?
Thank you, Julie. Does anybody have any questions? I have to be patient. I'll pause a little more. I don't see any. Up. I guess I got to count to 10. Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4. I just wanted to say thank you, Julie, for the tremendous services that you offer. This community is really, truly quite fortunate to have you.
Thanks, I appreciate that. It's our pleasure.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Okay, nobody else now. I agree with that sentiment from Representative Zesma, and I'm glad that you are beefing up the staff there and taking care of our seniors. So thanks for coming tonight. I'm sorry. And I think you want to come tonight because it's your birthday tomorrow night, right?
It is. Thank you. Happy birthday to us.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, Julie. Thank you.
Everybody.
All right, let's see, guys. All right, we're going to head into Public Works. It's 9:16. I think we're doing okay. So 5011 Department, page 162, Public Works Administration, and we have Interim DPW Director John Marsilio. John, are you here?
I am here.
Okay, sir. Take it away.
So thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good evening to all the members of the RTM. I think everyone's pretty familiar with what the Public Works Department does. The budget we are reviewing now is the administrative piece of that, that oversees public works operations, engineering, solid waste and recycling, street lights, and tangentially the WPCA. So our roles are pretty evident: snow and ice operations, stormwater drainage, public building maintenance, and in-kind services for other departments. In terms of the administrative budget, the Public Works Department operates with 3.5 people, the administrative piece of this, with 3.5 people at this point. And for the most part, it is a reduction in overall salaries because of reorganizations. Mr. Moderator, the one piece of this budget that is kind of like by itself is the streetlight account. And if you'd like me to just go through that really quickly, we can get on to the operations piece, which the Deputy Director, John Cotel, can discuss with you. And the big news there is, of course, the bifurcation of the Public Works duties and the Parks Department duties.
Right.
So if that be your pleasure.
I think there's just questions on first the administration. I don't think anybody's worried about the streetlights. Just keep them on at night. Representative Georgiadis, please.
Through Georgiadis, District 9. I'm just looking at the one item in administration, which is really high, the printing, binding, and photography. I know the number is not very high, but knowing that the first selectwoman's objective for the town, as she says often, is modernization. Printing, binding, and photography sounds to me for Public Works Department to be maybe something old-fashioned. Can you, will you eventually, what is this?
So printing, binding, and related expenses are copy charges, paper, ink cartridges, business cards, and sundry. It's a catch-all for all of those items.
Hopefully you can reduce this by doing less printing, less binding, use fewer ink cartridges. It's better for the environment and is very modern. So thank you.
Oh my God. Representative, it's, this is just typical ink and paper, and it's a $1,200 item, line item. It's really not that much.
I said that initially, Madam First Selectwoman, that I know the number was not a large number. I said that initially.
Okay, let's move on from this. There aren't any other questions, Mr. Marsilio, there. So we're going to go to, thank you for giving us the breakdown here and coming tonight. So we'll go to 5030 Department, page 165, Public Works Operations. Assistant DPW Director, John Cattell, and I see you here, so far away.
Good evening, everybody. As Mr. Marsilio mentioned earlier, there's changes with the bifurcation of the Parks Department that was removed from the DPW. So a lot of your changes you'll see associated with about 7 employees that were removed from DPW and into the parks maintenance, along with associated costs that go with them. That's the main thing. We have some increases for fuel, which everybody's well aware of, and some increases for communications for additional GPS systems. And I'll entertain any questions that someone may have.
Any questions? Representative Spolier.
Representative Spolier, District 4. I just had a question with the changes, if it changes the process at all. So if there's something at a park that I have a constituent concerned about as far as like maintenance or something that's broken or not repaired, would that change the process of how that repair gets made in the park?
Generally, yes. The maintenance personnel will be under Parks Anthony's personnel.
So like
so we
now,
support
I know,
we will still support them for like their equipment. Our garage will still take care of their vehicles and equipment. But if you're talking about like a broken bench in a park or something like that, Parks personnel would then take care of that.
so we should direct our constituents to call Parks and Rec instead of DPW in those situations?
Yes, or use the Q alert and it'll be forwarded to them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Spolier. Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara for District 7. Hi, Mr. Cattell. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Cattell.
Cattell. It's nice to meet you. I haven't met you yet. And I wanted to talk to you about some of the services that DPW provides that I haven't been seeing so much around town. It's listed as sweeping, roadside mowing, and litter control, sewer and drainage maintenance. I've been writing some emails for the past several months about the accumulation of litter in town, and just that I see trash everywhere. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I wanted to check to make sure that we are still providing these services.
Yes, we are. The sweepers have started their, going throughout the city. Obviously in the winter months, they don't go out. In springtime, we start getting them out to sweep the streets, as well as any major trash, illegal dumping or something like that, that Public Works would handle it.
Okay, because it
More
was a
so
problem.
roadside.
It was a problem in my area, at least, even before the winter. And it's just that the snow then covered up all of the trash by, there's just and then there's a new accumulation, mostly by exit ramps, but then it makes its way into the town. And I see it covering so many different sewers, especially by Round Hill Road, where there's an overpass and it floods there. So I'm just very concerned about the impact that this could have on the town. And I just like to make sure that we continue with these services. It's not looking so nice for Fairfield.
And let me comment on that. When we do get items, obviously the state has a lot of property. They're mainly in control of the exit ramps and on-ramps for 95. So it'd be addressed to them. A lot of those complaints that are on the state responsibility, we would be forwarding to them.
Yeah, I've made the complaints to DOT, but unfortunately, some of it makes its way down into our town and we just have to take care of it ourselves. And a lot of it is also coming from businesses. I mean, if you drive around the circle, I've never seen anything like it. I've lived in a lot of cities, and it's really getting to the point where it's not acceptable. And I also wanted to ask about leaf collection. That's listed as one of the services. How much does the leaf collection cost us? I know it's collection and then carting it to another place.
156,000 a year.
156, and that's to collect the leaves. Is that also to transport them anywhere else?
The $156,000 a year is where we have a outside vendor who collects most of the leaves in the lower half of Fairfield. We'll get some spot locations where people put them out in a brown bag, and DPW will pick them up, and we take it down to the reduction center that's operated by We Care Denali. And there's no fee for that process. That's part of their contract to address that.
Okay. Have we ever thought about having our own leaf composting area so we can have people bring their leaves themselves?
People are allowed to bring leaves there themselves to the composting, up to 500 pounds free of charge.
Okay. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you, Representative Vergara. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esma, District 4, through you to Mr. Cattell. Before I ask my question, I just want to publicly thank Public Works. I neglected to name them in my rebuttal to the state of the town as a group that really deserved our thanks and appreciation as essential workers and all that you did during the pandemic. So I wanted to pass that along to everyone. And my question, Mr. Cattell, is certainly, can you provide a little bit of detail about the capital outlay line item, please?
That's as far as with the vehicles and equipment is what you're talking about. Where we had 600,000 initially requested, and it was dropped down to about 400,000. We understand that, as you probably heard from others, with supply chain issues, for us to get the actual equipment that we want to may want to get. I guess a lot of it's, if you look on one of the pages in the budget book, there'll be a list of what those items were.
Page
I added up
170.
to 616.
Yep, page 170 in the budget book.
Right. Okay.
I guess the question there will be, what's being cut in that list?
At this point, it depends as to what we're actually able to get. For supply chain issues. My understanding was that the Board of Finance was saying, okay, we understand and appreciate that you're willing to reduce the $200,000. But we also understand that there may be things that you might want that are not available and other things that you do want, which you might be able to get. So they basically left it up to the dollar amount for us to acquire from what we can.
So it's just a dollar amount. It's not like from this list, whatever you can get, you're gonna get, like, whatever pops up first, you're gonna buy that.
Correct. Is
Right.
what we can, what's available and that we can get right away.
Right, okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cattell.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Zesma, and I'm sorry for jumping in. I apologize. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Cattell? All right. Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Cattell, and thanks for coming tonight and discussing the budget with us.
You're quite welcome.
And it looks like Mr. Hurley has made it here, so we're going to go on to Department 5070, Engineering, and Engineering Manager, Mr. Bill Hurley, page 176 in our budget books. Bill, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Hurley, Engineering Manager for Fairfield. Annually, the Engineering Department prides itself with a prudent budget. However, this year, there were a few significant increases that I will discuss with you. With 36 grants on the engineering schedule and many other upcoming projects through ARPA, Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, LOTSIP, Federal Local Bridge Program, the department required reorganization that includes an assistant engineering manager and construction project manager engineer to meet the demands of these projects. Other notable accounts include fees and professional services. There was a significant increase due to the DEEP's required stormwater testing and monitoring requirements. We actually were able to take some samples during today's rain. Pavement preservation program and traffic signal management program and repairs. Some of the items are new, and some of them, like the traffic signal repairs and stormwater, some of the stormwater testing fees will be transferred from the DPW operations into the engineering budget. Motor vehicle fuel, the increase is to the current rise in motor vehicle fuel, similar to the other departments. Communications increase was related to the additional cell phone phones, service plans, and one field tablet. Right now we have 0, so this would be our first field tablet for our field crew and surveyors. And then advertising, legal ads and public notices are still required by grants. The state and federal government still require the legal ads and notices to be published in a daily newspaper. The cost of these legal notices have gone up from $400 to $1,200 each in just the last 2 years. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have on engineering budget.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. So to the body, any questions? Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara for District 7. Hi, Bill. I think that you're one of the hardest working people in this town. So thank you for being here with us. And I know that you've been at other budget meetings. And thank you for doing all of that. I did have some questions about the staffing. And I do understand that you need more staff. I'm just curious about there being so many managers. So it seems like there's 5 PETA employees and 2 Thea. So who is doing the work? It seems like there's a lot of management and not a lot of people to do the actual work. Are there any people drafting and coming up with the drawings?
Yes, that's a good question, Jill. What we have is, we have, even though they're in the PETA union, we do have two civil engineers, and they're doing design work, they're doing the CAD drawings, they're doing data collection that's a little bit above what maybe a standard field member might do. We do have the two surveyors. Whoops, sorry about that. My phone's going off. And so anyway, we do have the two field members for the survey crew, and the construction manager position would be an inside and outside where they would be managing projects that we have upcoming, where there's a couple of them that we already have earmarked for them when we hire them.
Okay. And so those two civil engineers, they're credentialed, they have all the professional licensures they're required to have, and that most engineers have. They have bachelor's degrees in engineering.
Yes, the recent engineering hires both have bachelor's of science in civil engineering at the University of Connecticut, and they both have their fundamentals of engineering or engineering EIT certifications. We have one that I believe in June or July will be going for their professional engineer's license.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Sure.
Thank you, Representative Vergara. Anybody else? Well, Bill made a special point to get here for us tonight, guys. Anything? All right, Mr. Hurley, we're going to let you go.
All right, thank you.
Oh, come on. I counted to 10. I gave us so much time. Mr. Woke. Let's get on this, guys, you know?
Let me just go get on my video. So hi, Bill. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Jay.
I don't know if you can see me, but there I am. So thanks, Bill, for everything you do. You know, we've known each other a long time, and you know, you've been great. So my question to you is, I know I see all these improvements that are happening around town, Black Rock Turnpike, Kings Highway. So I know you and I have discussed, you know, I'll just make this quick. As part of the project, remember we talked about lights, you know, certain lights being put in on arrows on certain streets. And then I heard that there's going to be, you guys are talking about roundabouts on Black Rock Turnpike. I'm trying to figure out how that's going to work.
Jay, budget question, please.
No, the question is all these projects you're going to be is part of the projects going to be into changing traffic lights also? Is that money going to be doing for that also?
Well, there's a couple of things. We have grant applications in the process right now. We have one that the estate is, the MetroCog Regional Council governments have already approved. Now it goes to the state for some, you know, we'll call it phase one of the Black Rock Turnpike. It does not include that roundabout. But as more money comes available, and in some cases they're looking for regional improvements, some of our larger projects may be eligible, and we'll be working with MetroCog and the DOT to apply for those grants.
Thanks, Bill. Take care.
Sure.
Thank you, Representative Wolk. I think I'm safe to let you go now, Mr. Hurley.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for coming, and I agree with Representative Vergara. You might be the hardest worker in town.
Thank you for those kind words.
All right, where are we now? We're at Department 6070, Solid Waste and Recycling, page 187. And tag team duo of interim DPW Director John Marsilio and Assistant DPW Director John Cattell.
So I'll speak on this.
Thank you, Mr. Cattell.
And as the first select woman mentioned in the very beginning, a lot of these increases are associated with contracts that are tied to inflationary numbers. So you'll see the operation of the transfer station from the vendor, hauling fees and tipping fees that all go up with inflation, and obviously with the higher inflation that we're experiencing, there's greater increases. Those are the main items, and I'll entertain any questions you have.
So to the body, any questions? Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. So I tried to get in touch with Solid Waste and Recycling about some of the trash issues, and I had a problem locating who was the director. And I know that you've been running this department and also been helping Solid Waste and Recycling Commission. They don't have an email. So really, without having a director listed, there's very little way except by snail mail to get in touch with anybody. So I'd like to ask that the town website be revised and include your name and your contact information, and clearly identify you as being the director of that department and helping with that commission, if that's possible, because that commission is required by state statute and town ordinance to have a director. And that still hasn't been settled we're still waiting for a revised ordinance from the town attorney so that we can comply with state statute, and so that we're not breaking our own laws by having you serve as the director. So it'd be great to have that done too. If Jim's on the line, he can revise our ordinance so that we're compliant. But in the meantime, I think it's
Point
really
of order,
important.
Mr. Moderator. These questions are wonderful, but they have nothing to do with the budget. We have an enormous list to get through for the evening, and if everyone's going to come in and pitch what they want departments to do rather than ask about the budget, we're going to be here till 11 o'clock, 12:30, 1 a.m. It's really, please. It's not fair to everybody who's here to hear the budget.
This is a shadow department right now. There is no responsibility for it.
Then ask to have it on a regular agenda.
We have an agenda right now. Talking about the budget is totally germane to that. We didn't even know who this was coming from. I thought that Mr. Marsilio was going to speak to it. There's no official director. It's inappropriate. And it's very germane to their budget. Who put together the budget?
I did. I'm in charge of
With
it.
all due respect, Representative, Mr. Cattell is the acting Solid Waste and Recycling Director, and to my understanding, it is not against the rules to have one person do two jobs.
Our ordinance requires a director.
He is the director.
It should be stated somewhere as such. He's not officially stated to be the director or of helping the commission. So it'd be really helpful for public officials to know who to contact for any questions regarding anything in this budget. So his name and his contact information should be on the town website.
I haven't looked at the town website lately, but this is the first I've heard, and I get more emails than anybody in this town gets from residents. Anyone saying they had trouble getting in contact with the Solid Waste and Recycling Director, except for you.
I'm having a problem, yes. And I think that that's a big problem.
Well, you're an elected official, and we're very happy to help you in any way that you need. All you have to do is call or email me, and I'm happy to help you.
I've been emailing department heads and have been unsuccessful getting in touch with anybody about this
I'm
issue.
aware of that.
Okay,
And
thank you.
if the town attorney is still on the line, I would like him to follow through from last year's budget discussions to revise that ordinance for us because it is
Okay.
not in compliance.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Cattell concerning this budget item? Representative Pistilli.
How about now? Now can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yay. All right. I switched from my headset. Sharon Pistilli, District 3. I just had one question, and it was a result of the discussion on the Board of Finance budget hearing, Mr. Cattell. Just as a point of reference, I was the chair of the Solid Waste and Recycling Commission for 10 years, so I have a little knowledge of this. I know that, like, we saw a huge balloon of electronics recycling last year. And just remind me, like, in terms of revenues for us, that increases revenues because the vendor that we use pays us for those electronics, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then is there any projection? So I did a little research on it. It seems like the increase in electronics is due to the pandemic and people just like getting rid of all their home equipment and replacing it with new stuff. So is this going to end up being like revenue into the future? Or is there a certain point where electronics recycling, like if we had a bubble and it burst, like it ends up costing us more money, just like other types of recycling?
Currently with the recycling of electronics, there, certain precious metals in there. So that's why it's a revenue for us. There is a market out there for them. I don't see that being a cost at any time in the future, as in the costs that you associate with the normal single stream recycling, where those markets just tanked over the past several years.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pistilli. Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara for District 7. I have a question about the revenues listed. Why wasn't the mini bottle bill revenue listed under solid waste and recycling? That's new, and we should be receiving some money from the state.
I have no idea what the projections of those numbers will be at this point in time, and that's something that I'd have to work with Finance Department once we start seeing them.
Okay, when are we anticipating getting any money from the state? It's this coming fiscal year?
I would think so, but like I said, I'd probably need to get with our finance director on that.
Okay, was that disclosed to the Board of Finance?
I don't believe we went into the mini bottle bill.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt, you have a comment?
Yes, so the money from that should start coming in this quarter, was my understanding. And the estimated amount, I have to follow up with you on this for sure, but I believe it was in the range of about $28,000 that they were projecting to bring in. And this would probably, because it has there are certain purposes that it has to be used for. And I know there have been conversations with the Sustainability Task Force. So this money hasn't been budgeted yet as an appropriation in the budget, and the revenue is not in the budget.
When you say this quarter, you mean Q2 2022?
Right, yes. Yeah, the last quarter of this fiscal year.
Or Q4 of, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm speaking of for this year. So.
I think we're saying the same thing.
I'm fourth quarter for the town. second quarter on my calendar,
Right.
but it's this, yeah, it's this year. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cattell. Thank you for presenting. I think this is your first budget with us. I hope you enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right, Department 130, WPCA, page 242. Mr. John Bodie, WPCF Superintendent. Are you here?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't see
Okay.
you. I
Yeah,
hear
the
you.
video's not working.
All right.
Okay, I just wanted to start by saying that the budget is funded, self-funded by the sewer user fee alluded to by the tax collector before, and a few other fees and permits that we get money from. So the budget increased this year by 16%, or $930,097 from last year. 42% of that money, or $390,351, is town-directed expenses, payroll, health and welfare. We are also paying back the town $154,231 for engineering services provided to the WPCA by the town last year. A few of the projects were the microgrid project, the hardening, and a couple of generator replacements. Also, 6% of that increase was, or $58,622 is for potential contractual salary increases pending contract. 15% of the increase, or $139,892, is department-controlled expenses. Our disposal costs for fees and trucking have gone up, maintenance and repair of equipment, parts gone up, and two of the chemicals we use here at the treatment plant are petroleum-based, and those costs have gone up substantially by 40% in some cases. And finally, 36%, or $336,944, is related to principal and interest payments for a bond for the Easton Turnpike and Force Main replacement. And I will take any questions you may have.
Any questions from the body? All right, I don't see any. I just have one question. Up until 2000, or through the year 2021, there was no contingency line. Now there is one that's not quite doubled. So it's up 76%, 77% from last year. What is that?
Looking at it right now, that
it's 135,000. It was 76,000 last year.
That's for the salary increases for the union contracts if they get settled.
Okay, thank you. You might have said that and I missed it, but. All right, Mr. Bodie, I do not see any questions. We appreciate you hanging around and speaking with us. Have a good rest of the night.
Thanks, you too. Thank
you. All right, we're going to move on to culture and recreation and the Anthony Calabrese show, starting at 7030. Penfield Pavilion Complex, page 198, Parks and Rec Director, Anthony Calabrese.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Anthony Calabrese, Director of Parks and Recreation. Thank you for accommodating my schedule. I know you guys had me on for tomorrow night, and I do appreciate taking me tonight. So
that's why you're going last, so don't worry about it.
I'm used to going last.
I know you are. You like the late time.
I'll tell you what, though, this is way earlier than the Board of Finance, so I'll take it.
We're working on it. So
I was just getting warmed up now. So all right, Penfield Pavilion. you'll see overall many of the line items are down. And again, this is primarily because the building is only going to operate until October 31st. I don't have any other details on future plans, so I'll try to cut those questions off before they even get asked. Major driver of this budget is we have two line items for payroll, what we call part-time, which are people that typically work year-round down at the beach, whether it's Jackie Durrell or the Penfield Pavilion, and then the seasonal payroll. Again, majority of this increase is solely due to minimum wage and then increase the number of events. We do expect an uptick at Jackie Durrell that once Penfield closes. Happy to take any questions on this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Calabrese. Anybody on Penfield? Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Esmer, District 4. Hi, Anthony. Hey. So we don't have an update, any definitive information about what is happening with Penfield. And at this point, I don't know how long it would take to implement something if that were the case, but we're taking it offline anyway.
So I do know that the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Bremer, has been working, he's been at least in discussions with FEMA and I believe Connecticut Deep on options. And that's all I know at this point. I believe that their goal is to start work in November. Again, what that's going to consist of, I don't have those details.
Okay, thanks. But we'll get updates on that. But it's a done deal. You've cut off taking reservations, and that's not going to change.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zesma. Representative Steele.
Hi, Jeff Steele, District 2. Anthony, just two quick questions on revenue figures for Penfield and Jackie Durrell. What do we normally bring in revenue-wise, or let's say revenue-wise, and then net profit or profit when you take out expenses for each of those per year?
Well, tricky to
on average.
Well, revenue-wise, Jackie Durrell typically is about 140,000-ish in revenue. Again, that's gross revenue. That's not going to be net.
Right.
Then Penfield's, around 325. This year, it's ticking higher because our rate structure has finally caught up. We had old money on the books for a few years. We booked 2 years in advance, so when rate changes take place, they don't affect the ones that are already booked. So those were cranking right along. However, once you start implementing debt service and things of that nature, we're in the negative for a few years. But we were trending ahead of all the projections from, all the different options that they had proposed way back when they rebuilt this building, the 2012 time frame.
So we're trending negative due to debt service or overall costs?
No, primarily debt service.
Okay.
If you take the debt service out of the P&L portion, then we're making money. But we like to look at it as a whole.
Can you give me a sense of what we're making if you take out expenses, payroll, and everything else, excluding debt? I mean, what is the net on each of those?
Yeah, I can. You're probably in the neighborhood of 200,000, 300,000 total after expenses.
Okay.
And I could actually send you those. I could get the RTM those numbers.
Okay.
We keep those so they're readily available for us.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep. No problem.
Thank you, Representative Steele. Any other questions on Penfield Pavilion Complex? Like I said, my only question, the complex includes the entire thing, lockers, concession, right?
That's correct.
All right. So the budget for FY22 is $504,639 revenue. Are we going to hit that number?
For fiscal year 22, a current budget,
Yeah,
we're going to exceed that number.
we're gonna exceed that number.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to your 7070 waterfront, page 205.
Okay.
Oops, sorry, 7050 first, 201, page 201. Skipping ahead of myself.
All right. All right. Parks and Recreation, this is the administrative portion of our budget. Again, not much really in here. This is where the full-time salaries are kept for the recreation portion. You'll see contracted property services is up. That's our tree that we light every year on the town hall green. That had to go back out to RFP, came in a little higher. So that's one of the major drivers in this budget. Happy to take any questions.
Representative Barris.
Steve Barrett, District 6, through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Calabrese. I notice you have a coordinator's position there. I think that's it's aquatics and rec services coordinator. Is that true?
We have a recreation aquatics coordinator, correct?
And that position is, I assume, is part aquatics and I think part Penfield Pavilion?
Yep, primarily. Also does some other programming, but yes.
Okay, what percentage of it is aquatics? What percentage of it is Penfield Pavilion? What percentage of it is other things that you have them do?
I would say right now it is probably 40% Penfield, 40% waterfront, and then the other 20% is other things, community gardens, programming, things of that nature.
So in terms of the waterfront, this person would take the job of what was previously referred to as the waterfront director?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good, good. This was a delayed question from Penfield, as well as other locations in town. I'm wondering how the parking fees, if they fall into each individual recreational location, as well as parking stickers that where the revenue comes in, they might be parked on the street. Where does all the revenue come in that's labeled parking, and where in the budget will that appear?
Yeah, parking revenue comes under waterfront, and you'll see it in daily beach parking, and I believe it's beach stickers is the other one that we label it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, Jill.
Hey, that new contract that we have for the Christmas tree, is that with a new vendor?
It is.
Okay, great.
I believe it's Eastern Land Management, if I remember correctly.
That's good news. Thank you.
Are they the ones that tore up the grass in Town Hall after they took the lights down?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? I'm looking down at my iPad for my list and peeking to the right, and I don't see anybody. So we'll go on to 7070 waterfront, page 205.
All right, waterfront expenses, again, here, the primary driver is seasonal payroll. This includes all our lifeguards, parking attendants outside of the Penfield Pavilion. This is the others, all the other locations. And I'm happy to take questions on it.
Okay. Steve, Representative Barris, you're back for a question? Yes.
Yeah, Steve Barrett's District 6. That seasonal employee payroll, that would include a stipend for those who teach swim lessons?
Doesn't include a stipend, but the swim instructors get paid more, yes.
Okay.
That's in that line, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Barrett. Representative Steele.
Hi, Jeff Steele, District 2. Anthony, out of the 1.2 revenue we get from the waterfront, how much for the beach stickers and beach parking? How much of that is made up of those two items? So taking out concessions.
Yep, 900,000 is beach stickers. So those are the ones that are actually physically sold. About 35,000 get sold to residents. The remainder, about 1,500 get sold to non-residents, and then about 275,000 is daily parking. So those are the people that pay at the beach, whether they're a resident or not. They don't have a sticker, they pay.
And what is the in terms of the amount we charge for out-of-towners to go there? What is the process for adjusting that fee year to year? And where do we compare it with other towns? I mean, let's just say Westport.
Yeah. Well, compared to Westport, we are extremely low priced or moderately priced. In the scheme of surrounding Fairfield County towns, we're kind of middle of the pack, if not to on the lower end for non-resident rates. We charge $250 for a season pass. That does get the non-residents access to Penfield Beach or Jennings Beach. There's a couple towns that are a little less than us. There's towns that are a lot more than us. We do have to keep an eye on state legislation. I'm sure some of you guys have heard me talk about this over the years. Every so often, different bills pop up where most recently, they want to try to make beaches more accessible to all Connecticut residents, no matter where you live. So I've been trying to fight that as much as I can, because it's our tax dollars that are paying to maintain our beaches. Neither here nor there in this discussion, but that's where we're budgeting right now. There is still a bill that's alive, would cap the non-resident rate at 50% of the resident rate. So right now we charge $25 for a resident sticker. Right. That would put the non-resident sticker at $37.50.
Right. What is the risk to us in terms of the state funding? Like if we were to say, well, we're going to price it however we want, how much do we lose from the state potentially?
So that's outside of my wheelhouse. The one bill that was in the transportation department, as of right now, they did vote that out to a study. That one was dependent upon funding for roads. So that might be a question for Public Works. They could, or one of those public work departments that could probably get you the number of how much state funding's taken. The current bill that's still alive right now, I don't believe it isn't tied to state funding at all.
Okay, so it's 900,000 that we make in terms of revenue from Penfield minus the concessions.
And
Jennings, yeah. So have we considered raising that further for non-residents as an additional way to bring in revenue?
We raised that one right before COVID hit. So we had that whole COVID year in 2020 where I don't believe we sold, if I remember correctly, I don't believe we sold non-resident passes that year. So last summer was the first summer where we had the new rate at $250. It was up from $200 the year prior to that. So we do raise it every so often. We keep an eye on it. Every time you raise the rate, the number of passes goes down.
I understand.
We typically will make about the same amount of money, but less passes are being sold.
Okay, which may be kind of what we're getting at here.
But the other side to that is what we're seeing more and more of, and I'm sure some of our colleagues in the beach area will tell us, there's a lot more people being dropped off. There's a lot more people taking Uber in. There's a lot more people parking in other places down in that area and then finding their way to the beach, because we don't charge anybody to walk onto the beach.
No, of course.
Access fee. The fee is for parking.
And the daily fee, what about the daily fee? Has that gone up over the since pre-COVID or?
It went up, I want to say it was 4 years ago. We raised it from $20 to $40 during the week, and I believe we went $40 to $50 on the weekends. Again, those are all very comparable to surrounding neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Lambert?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Lambert, District 3. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Calabrese. My question is actually, I think, kind of the inverse of Jeff's. Have we studied at all or looked at all the possibility of lowering the out-of-town fee so as to encourage more people to purchase stickers to bring that revenue in through the town instead of having the problem that you kind of alluded to before of people parking elsewhere, people being dropped off, et cetera? Has that been considered? If so, has there been a study done or have we thought about that in that way?
No, I would say that it hasn't been studied to bring more people into the beaches to make them more accessible. I think the way that it has been looked at is that anybody can go to the beach for free. So therefore, all our beaches are accessible to anybody who would like to go to them. But we are charging, I don't want to say a premium, but we are charging for that access to park at that beach. Obviously, the more people we have at the beach, the more trash we have, the more maintenance we have, the more costs that go with it. So as you bring in more people, the expenses go up. It's kind of a give and take. I think there's a delicate balance, just like any other kind of ecosystem. So I think we are where we should be based on what I'm seeing with the other communities. But it is something that we look at every year.
Yeah, and just to clarify, my question wasn't so much about bringing people into the beach to access the beach more so much as to encourage people to buy out-of-town passes as opposed to trying to avoid those by parking elsewhere, clogging up community roads, further down the beach, the Uber situation as you mentioned too. And I know you mentioned that there's a relationship obviously between the fees going up and the amount of passes that are sold. I just wasn't sure if it had been considered bringing those fees down so as to encourage people to go through and actually get a pass as opposed to just simply using the beaches without actually, getting any revenue from it.
Understood. No, I don't believe that that's specifically been looked at.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Representative Lambert. Representative Havey.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Calabrese. Is there a way to track, or are you tracking, or can you track the number of out-of-town stickers that people use? I'm wondering out loud here, is it possible that the more stickers we sell, does it really change the amount of people that come to the beach? Thank you.
So we do track the number of non-resident passes we sell each year, and we do track the number of daily passes that we sell. The wild card in that equation is actual people that wander onto the beach. We don't have any way to monitor that or track how many people just walk on.
I was wondering more about how many beach stickers we sell to out-of-town residents, and do they actually use them?
It's about 15. Yeah.
I buy the transfer ticket every year, and I haven't been to the transfer station in a while, but I buy it. I just haven't been there. So yeah. I'm wondering if people buy the tickets and don't actually use the parking.
We don't track actual specific usage to a car, so no. That number I don't have. I know we sell about 1,500 non-resident stickers and 35,000 or so resident stickers, but I couldn't tell you that you went to the beach, 27 times.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Havey. Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Anthony, my you and I have talked about this so much. Can you explain to the body, please, how, because we receive federal dollars, we can't restrict non-residents from using our beach?
I can, yes. I will do my best to succinctly give this answer. So a number of years ago, the town did take federal funding to do work at Penfield Beach and at Jennings Beach, and contingent upon that funding, accepting that funding, was we had to keep our beaches accessible, free. I don't want to say free and open, but they used the term reasonable. You couldn't charge a non-resident it's written like an unreasonable amount more than you were charging a resident. So that's how we have. That's why we aren't allowed to charge for access to our beaches, but we can charge for parking within a reason. And the argument people are making with Westport next door is that they're charging an unreasonable amount, but there's nowhere that really defines what reasonable is. It's not a specific, it's double or it's triple, it's reasonable. So hopefully that answers it as succinctly as I can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. Anthony, I'm just looking at your waterfront revenue for this year's forecast. Was forecasted FY22 budget 1.132078. How are you doing towards that number?
I believe beach stickers are trending up. Beach parking is on track, maybe a little behind. That number is always weather dependent. We should hit it.
Okay, and then the beach concession, obviously that's going to close. When does that normally close? What month?
September.
Okay, so it's going to close September, and then everything closes October. All right. I think we're going to carry on to 7080, page 207.
Only 4 more budgets for me.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll breeze through these. We have, what time is it? 10:16, so we got 44 minutes. I don't want to disappoint Representative Iacona and go over 11. So let's get cooking.
Yep. All right. 7080. This is parks. This was mentioned a little bit earlier when you guys were talking about public works. We did separate this out. Parks now reports under Parks and Recreation as part of our restructuring. So the numbers that you see here are numbers that Mr. Cattell and I sat down and went through their budget and tried to go through invoices and stuff for all the expenses we knew that were currently, over the last 2 years, were charged to parks. And this was our best estimate as to where these numbers should closely shake out over the next year. Much like the marina budget, when we separated that out a couple of years, 2 years ago, we did our best estimate there, and it seemed to be spot on. This one, there's some wild cards with field renovations and things of that nature that sometimes just pop up, but we're fairly confident in the numbers that we put here. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Anthony. Representative Pastilli.
Sharon Pastilli, District 3. Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay, good. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Calabrese. Hi, Anthony. I just had a quick question on the Superintendent of Parks on page 209. That's listed as a department head, and I was trying to track back to like where that position was in last year's budget book. Like I have last year's budget book in front of me.
Yep.
And is that a new position or like an additional department head?
No. That is the former superintendent of public works position.
Got it. I see it. Okay.
Look at on the bottom of it's right there, Sharon.
Oh, Yeah, I can't see font that little. Okay, sorry. I see it. It's on page 199 of the prior year's book. Okay, I got it. And then I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bastilli. Representative Spolier.
Hi, Anthony, Representative Spolier, District 4. I was wondering, and I don't know if this probably pertains to waterfront and all the other ones that we've gone through a little bit too, but so last year we put aside $150,000 in capital for the master plan for all the parks and area, and I kind of want to know, are we done with that, or is there going to be any additional expenses in this budget? Are we anticipating that?
So if I understand the question correctly, there was $150,000 allocated for the master plan through the I had proposed it through the non-recurring capital. It got cut from there, and then it came out of surplus, and they put it into 7050. I had to carry it over, if I remember correctly, into the current year budget. We put it out to RFP. The bid came in roughly $140,000. So that was what we haven't spent all of that 140 yet because the work's not done. But I don't anticipate the work to exceed that roughly 140. It certainly won't exceed the 150,000. And that is just to go through the master plan process and for them to put together the recommendations and hold all the meetings they've been holding, and to put together 15 separate plans, proposed plans that we've asked them to do for us.
Okay, and when we get that master plan completed and those 15 proposal plans in front of us, do you anticipate any of that, those plans coming before us for budget in this fiscal year?
No, I don't see it in this fiscal year. It would these are most likely going to be capital projects, or they'll either go in non-recurring or they'll be larger projects than that. If there are any things that we can put into our operating budget, smaller, I don't know, a little pavilion or something, that might run $15,000, I would put that in my operating budget. I don't know that I would actually spell it out. It might be lumped in field and maintenance and repairs. But we are trying to work as closely as we can with as many different community groups. As I know you're involved with Lincoln Park, and I'm planning to meet them out there and go through some other ideas. So hopefully, those I might be able to identify in the budget, in the operating budget, depending on what they are. But that's how I go.
Okay, and just another question regarding that. So now that this has come over from DPW, so in the case of, a tree falls in the park or the blacktop needed to be, where was that out of the DPW budget in the past? So you would have to call them and ask them for that budget money, or how did that work in the past? I'm guessing this is much better.
Yeah, so in the past, that's exactly what would happen. You would most likely call my department, or I should say a normal resident would call my department and say, oh my gosh, a tree fell down in the park, come take care of it. What I would do is I would contact Public Works, the tree warden, and say, hey, we had a tree come down. He'd send a crew out, and it would come out of his budget. So it wouldn't come out of the recreation budget. Now that we have parks under recreation, all the calls that we were getting, we're still going to get, except now I can handle them and allocate it, or address them as quickly as we can. So yeah, and now I have to budget for that stuff in this 7080 budget. Yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, I like that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Spolier. Representative Vergara.
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. Hi, Anthony.
Hey,
I just have a question about the organization of this new department. If it has its own department head, are they reporting to you? Is this under the umbrella of recreation? How does this work?
Yeah. So I believe all the organizational charts have been provided, but if not, again, I could send that over. So the way I've got my department set up is you've got me as the director. I have the superintendent of parks, who basically is like I would say you could call it an assistant director. but he oversees all the maintenance side of things. And then I have another assistant director of recreation who oversees all the recreational programming and things of that nature. And then there's different levels underneath that of whether they're like, as Representative Barras had mentioned, recreation coordinator. So I've got that who's under the recreation person. We've got a foreman who's under the superintendent of parks. And it kind of just trickles down that way. I think we have about 26 or so people in our department right now.
Okay. And how does that work with the Park and Rec Commission? Does the Park and Rec Commission have purview over this Parks Department?
Yeah, and they always have.
Okay.
And the Public Works Director is a de facto member of the Parks and Rec Commission, just like I am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Vergara. I am going to move on to 7090, page 211, the marina.
Yep. Okay. Marina, no real big changes here. Seasonal payroll went up again, primarily due to minimum wage. Overall, this is a decrease in the budget, and it was just because last year we had a large capital project in there for security cameras down at the marina. So those are in the process of being installed, but I'm happy to take any questions.
I'm not seeing any, but I just have a question. Are there already secured? I mean, there was a lot of vandalism down there this year. Are there security cameras down there now in the parking lots during the winter months? And the marina guards aren't, I mean, is there patrolling of that parking lots during the winter, or how does that work for security down there?
Yeah, PD patrols down there. The marina guards that sit at the gate.
That's just right.
They stop mid-November.
Right.
When the season is over, they start actually start next week, I believe, April 15th-ish. They'll be down there, and then the Marine Police will be stationed down there. They're down there. I think they have 3 officers seasonally down there. The cameras have not been installed yet. They're in the process of being installed. So hopefully that will deter a lot of the vandalism that's taken place.
But this says overlook the docks. What about the parking lot?
I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, 5 to 6 security cameras to overlook the docks. Okay. Anybody else? All right, we're going to go to 7111, page 215, Carl J. Dickman Golf Course.
Yep, our par 3 golf course. Again, same kind of trends that we've been seeing. Minimum wage goes up, seasonal payroll has gone up. Again, most of these other lines have either stayed status quo or have decreased. Again, they had a large capital outlay last year, so they don't have that in the budget this year. So overall budget, you'll see a decrease. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody? Now that I have my new hip, I'm ready to go play. So if anybody wants to go down and work on their short game with me. All right, we'll go to, I got nobody said, all right. That's fine with me. That's good. Nobody. We'll go to the big course then. 7113, page 218, H. Smith Richardson Golf Course.
Yep. Smith Richardson Golf Course, again, very similar trend to the par 3 golf course. Seasonal payroll increases. And then I believe here we also cut some capital outlay. So that keeps the increase to this budget really to a minimum. Happy to take any questions.
Representative Steele.
It's me again, Jeff Steele, District 2.
We'll talk about revenue again?
We are. I'm interested.
Predictable, Jeff, predictable.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to make it straightforward. Anthony, you mentioned 2.253 million. Take out the restaurant concession. What does the driving range bring in, and what does the golf course bring in?
Driving range is about 160,000 a year. Everything else is the golf course. So
Everything
2
else.
million. Yeah.
Well, how much was the concessions or the restaurant?
Concession brings in a little over 60,000 a year.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear that. So that's pretty significant on the golf course.
Oh yeah,
200, about 2 million then, right?
that's correct.
Real quick question on the golf course itself. Everything's in great shape. It really is a world, I won't say world class, but it's a top class golf course, certainly for Connecticut municipal course. One area, I think, if there's a weakness to it, it's the bunkers. Do we ever, and it seems like it's the same year after year after year, do we improve the bunkers? Do we improve the drainage? Do we ever focus on that as part of our budget?
Yeah, so the way we handle bunker improvements, or at least the way we've handled it over the last 15 years, we had them in our last 10-year plan. The current Golf Commission, our 10-year plan ended last year. Current Golf Commission is working on, I don't want to call it another 10-year plan, but a long-range plan they're looking at, and it does include some bunker upgrades and drainage fixes, things of that nature, including fixes at the driving range, improvements at the driving range. So
Yeah, I thought that was a great 10-year plan. It did look forward year by year, the improvements, and look at the results of the course. So I would certainly recommend we do the same type of thing going forward to have a plan. So.
Yep.
Thank you, Representative Steele. Representative Georgiadis?
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. My question is tags on to Representative Steele. My question was about the driving range. I was there 2 days ago, and so improvements for there. Do you think that would increase revenue? And is that's going to be in the next long-range plan?
So yeah, yes and yes. I've had it on the waterfall chart for several years now. I've been carrying about $500,000. The plan, and that'll come before hopefully the bodies next February in the non-recurring. But the plan would be to put in a double-decker heated. I'd like to see year-round stalls up there, a new little building for the attendant. If we have an attendant, otherwise we'll have a machine that you don't need an attendant for. But I see this being modeled after some of the ones in Stamford, Shelton, maybe not as glamorous as Shelton, but one in Stamford does $1 million a year in revenue. There's no reason we can't do that.
I totally agree. I totally agree. We have the location, and it could be very profitable. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Georgiadis. I'm counting.
Someone wake Jay up.
All right, that's 10. I don't see anybody. So
Thank you, guys.
that is it for you, Mr. Calabrese. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was a long time on stage for you, but you're used to it.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, we got one last item. 1070, Registrar of Voters, page 40. Mr. Wagner, I see you here.
I believe we also have my
Mr. Elworthy here as well with
logged
you.
on. Steve, are you with us? Well, he is in the list in any case. So hello everyone. We have thank you for your indulgence. We had I have a class that I teach twice a month to new moderators in the state, and went from 6 to 9. So I appreciate your willingness to put us at the end of the meeting here. Our budget this year, the main two sort of drivers of what certainly looks on the surface is a large increase originally were things that we would historically have put into contingency, working with the administration. We put it in the budget directly. The first of which was funds that we identified as being necessary to run an election using 17 districts in case that the RTM didn't complete the redistricting process, the amount of about $60,000. Also funds for a two-party primary in August, gubernatorial and other state constitutional officers primary that may happen, may not. Everyone here is sort of politically involved, so you can handicap that on your own, which is in approximately $30,000 for that. You probably are aware, the Board of Finance recently made a cut to the funds we identified as being necessary for the 17 district election and primary that we may have to run. I know the redistricting committee has a little bit of time left, so that's sort of a live question, which as to whether or not that would be necessary and what the impact of that is. If the committee, or not the committee, if the RTM has any guidance for us about whether the group as a whole would entertain an appeal, the sort of the prospects of that, we can discuss that in this meeting, or we could follow up with sort of the caucus leaders and such in the coming days as to whether that's appropriate. I know we received notice from the budget director or the finance director yesterday about those cuts. So I think we have another 7-8 days to make that decision. So if people have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Steve, I do see that you're on. If you want to do some introductory remarks too, I don't know if you would like to or not. All right. Well, hopefully we'll get him by text, if not by some other method.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. So Representative Pistilli.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sharon Pistilli, District 3, through you to Mr. Wagner. Could you explain what the, in that $60,000, like what the budget difference is and like what the process and people needed to run an election, because we don't have the district squared away, what impact that's having on your function and the budget?
Sure. The 60,000 was about 34,000 of it was related to renting tabulators for additional districts. Basically, when you have a district, you have to have a machine to count ballots from that district. Our existing districts have been divided by the state representative lines that were recently passed by the state. And essentially, anytime one of your existing RTM districts is cut in two, we have to provide a separate voting space, whether that's in an existing polling place or a new polling place, and a machine to count those ballots. So most of that money was related to renting tabulators, which is truthfully a outrageous charge from the sole vendor. In some ways offensive, the amount of money they're charging like $3,200 to rent a machine that the retail price of was $7,000. So that's, kind of, like they gave me that number and I'm like, are you kidding me? But that's the number to rent 6 tabulators for 2 election events. We have 28 tabulators in our inventory. We had 13 districts in 2007 when this equipment was provisioned to us. We also have 2 machines that we would normally use for absentee ballots that we could use at a polling place. So 6 would be our shortfall for the remaining 3 districts, a primary and a backup tabulator for each. The rest of the money was primarily related to staffing, right? So if you have to have an additional number of lines at the polling places to check voters in and to do all the functions you need to at the polling place, that amount was something on the order of 24,000. So that was what we identified. Now with the cuts that the Board of Finance made, and I did, we had a short notice before that came about. I lobbied them. They were not really receptive to that request. We have to try and identify sort of what we will do to make up that shortfall. I think the options that we have are dramatically different depending on whether or not one or both primaries happen or don't happen. So obviously, you know, pray for decisive conventions, I suppose, in a way. But, you know, some of the things are, you know, you can understaff the polling places, you can buy fewer ballots, you can try and curtail the things we do in the office to maintain the list during the year. So some of those things are not great options that we're excited about. You know, in fiscal 21, we had a primary appear in August that we were not expecting. And we met some of that with grants and stuff that we were able to go out and get to try and make up the shortfall. But I'll say an observation I made just from and now this is my 13th year, I guess, as a registrar, is that every time we have gone about like trying to find cost savings by introducing a little more chaos into the election process, we have received universal scorn from other elected bodies, from voters. They're saying, you know, why did we make this decision just to save $10,000? Like, we hated it. Like, why were the lines longer? Why was there all this confusion? Why were the ballots folded? All of this stuff. And it's really made me appreciate how, you know, the service level that people expect, you know, they're not willing to trade it for a little bit of money, has been sort of my observation over the years. And so we're going to do the best we can to try and run a good quality election that people feel good about and is people can have confidence in. And, you know, we've been careful during the process that the redistricting committee has done to not say, oh, you have to do a redistricting, or you have to do this number of districts, or you have to do what we want, or the election's going to be a mess. We've said, you know, we will do whatever policy the RTM wants. If you want to have 17 districts as a policy question for this election, we will do it. You know, in some senses, there's, you know, some people will like having polling places be closer to them or having shorter lines because we have more people doing check-throughs. That's nice in some ways. There are upsides to it. You know, but I guess we'll see if there's any, you know, if the committee decides to revisit the question or not. Maybe some of that discussion is moot if that's something that's going to happen. I'm not a political handicapper. The last meeting didn't make it seem like that was very likely, but I guess we'll see.
So then to clarify then, Mr. Wagner, the committee's inability to decide on the districts is going to cost us to have to rent 6 times 3, 18 times 2,300 per machine, voting machines. So that's the math, right? So it's 18 voting machines times 2,300 a machine?
We have 28 machines, and we would normally use 34 machines to accommodate 17 districts. So it would be we have a shortfall of 6 machines.
6 machines.
I'll say,
okay, plus a backup, plus 3 backups.
Yeah, so 3 primary machines, 3 backup machines. And I'll say, you know, one of the, you know, we have some options where we can say, you know, normally you would have, if you wanted a split district to have, you know, have people vote at the place that they used to, you would need 4 machines. But if you made a split district instead be all the same ballot in the same location, we could potentially save having 1 machine. So we could have 2 districts with 1 backup on the site at 1 facility. So there are some of those things that we can do. And Mr. Elworthy and I are kind of in the, you know, we have to sort of decide on the polling places. I know that we did notify the moderator that, you know, at present, there's sort of no interest in moving forward with that process. So it may come to the RTM shortly to sort of decide on those districts. But for now, you know, we do have some ability to minimize that by changing more people to different locations, if that makes sense.
Okay, so then, but deciding on the districts would alleviate all this confusion and all the additional expense that we're seeing in this, that, you know, was proposed, that is going to have to be absorbed somehow in the budget.
Yep. Certainly having fewer districts would alleviate budget pressure on us, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Stilley. Representative Gale?
Hi, thank you so much. Hannah Gale, District 6. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Hannah.
I just wanted to double check on what I heard you say. Did you say that normally you often have to go to the contingency fund to make up shortfalls when there's sort of, these issues where there's a lot more, primaries, or in this case, just, districts that you have to provide services to?
I would say that during the Tetro and Flato administrations, it was their policy to put all primaries in contingency. So you never saw that number in our budget. When you looked at our budget requests, they would be relatively flat without spikes in years where we had primaries, because they never allowed us to budget for primaries in our budget.
I see. And did you have to go to the Board of Finance to use those contingency funds in those situations, or was it just understood that that's what you were going to have to do?
Because the primary would always happen prior to the general election, we would just spend for the primary what was necessary, and we would go to the Board of Finance to sort of refill our budget prior to the general election. That's what you would see in those years.
Okay, so in this case, if there is no budget for this and there's no contingency fund, what would you do? Like, how would you fund? Because you have a legal requirement to do this, right?
It's like I said, grants are an option. Pray for no primary. A variety of things. Just it produces sort of a crisis atmosphere in the office to have a shortfall that's that large a share of your budget. I think I definitely advocated against the cuts that the Board of Finance made in pretty strong terms to them. I don't. We have to sort of figure out exactly how we handle a cut of that size. If everything happens, if both the primary and if the primary happens and the redistricting doesn't, we have to kind of figure out how to accommodate those cuts.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Representative Gill, and we have Representative McCormick up next.
Yes, Karen McCormick, District 2, through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Wagner. Mr. Wagner, I know I asked you this during the redistricting committee meeting. I'm not really 100% sure if I got an answer about this, but is it not true that the renting of additional tabulators is not potentially necessary because the tabulators can be programmed to accept ballots from multiple districts within a polling location?
You can certainly program a tabulator to count as many ballot styles as you want. And, we do that when we count absentee ballots centrally, all the ballot styles will go through one tabulator, for example. So you can have, 10, 20 different ballot styles going through. We're required, and this is a statute. I'm not sure if the redistricting committee chair shared this with you after this was asked at the previous meeting. The statute requires that we furnish separate tabulators for each portion of a split district, in addition to a separate voting room. So while the equipment is capable, the statute does not permit us to do that.
And when you say the statute doesn't permit you to do that, on whose opinion are you basing that? Is that based upon a Secretary of State opinion letter, legal opinion, or based upon some interpretation of the statute by you and somebody in your office?
The language of the statute is so clear as to, it would be really challenging to come up with a different interpretation of that. Again, it's 168A, 9-168A.
Oh, I've read it. I've read it, and I believe that it is subject to a legal opinion letter. And I would strongly advise you to seek that opinion out, because the tabulator language does not necessarily mean that you have to rent separate tabulators for those particular elections. They can be programmed to accept the ballots. That's my understanding. And I would strongly encourage you to seek legal opinion on that before you make statements that we must rent tabulators to the tune of 5,000 apiece or whatever it is. Thank you very much. Nothing further.
Thank you, Representative McCormick. Representative Attorney Baldwin, you would like to make a comment. I just want to remind everybody we have 12 minutes. So try to not repeat questions and be short.
Yes, thank you. I just jumped in on this and picking up what Representative McCormick spoke to. I have in touch with the Secretary of State's office, and I do have a preliminary opinion from them stating that tabulators can be used for multiple districts because they are programmable up to 9 different ballots. But I am looking for written confirmation of that tomorrow. And the same could be said about us holding the elections or having polling places every place where we have had them for the past 10 years or so, each RTM district for the most part, and that they can be split so long as they have separate voter registrations. Again, I am looking for confirmation of that verbal opinion in writing from them, and tomorrow.
Thank you, Attorney Baldwin. Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Liz Asma, District 4. So would we be now spending more money on legal fees to determine the intent of that statute?
Is that question for Mr. Baldwin, Attorney Baldwin?
Yes, through you to Attorney Baldwin.
To the extent that I am corresponding with, communicating with the SOTs on behalf of the RTM and the registrar's office, yeah, in the form of my services.
Okay, well, in a previous discussion between the two of us and my discussions with the registrars and members of the committee, it's obvious that everybody has stated very strongly they'd like this job to get done. There is no reason that this is costing us a penny. Towns around us have done redistricting in a matter of hours and days. So, Matt, I appreciate that you appealed for that money. I also completely agree with the rationale for not keeping it in the budget. There is one remedy to this, and that's to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zesma.
Is this a big countdown?
Yeah, I'm trying to, count to like 10. And if I don't see anybody lining up, it's going to be over. And it looks like it's going to be over till tomorrow night. So I would like to thank everybody for tonight, hanging in there, asking some good questions. And I'll call a recess now until 7 p.m. tomorrow evening.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Mark. Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, everybody.
See all your smiling faces tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Happy birthday. Birthday, Mark.